That feel for events to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GBNews.
On Mark Dolan tonight, my Mark Meets guest is legendary comedian Joe Pasquale. We'll talk comedy, political correctness, and winning in the jungle. In the clash as the SNP kick off their annual conference, should Scotland go for independence? Are they ready? We'll hear from all sides on that one. We'll find out about the post-pandemic boom in plastic surgery with a top New York plastic surgeon. Plus my brilliant panel reacting to the big stories of the day and tomorrow's newspaper front pages. And in my big opinion, in 2 minutes' time, illegal migrant crossings are a national security crisis and must be dealt with now. It's the first time that I've made comments about this story and you won't want to miss them. But first up, the headlines, and with us all evening is the brilliant Karen Roberts.
Thank you, Mark. These are your latest headlines. The Prime Minister has spoken to South Africa's President about the global challenges to contain the new COVID variant, which has been given the Greek letter Omicron. The UK has imposed strict travel restrictions on 6 African nations after its discovery. The World Health Organization says the variant carries a higher risk of reinfection and may have a growth advantage. So far, there's been 1 case in Belgium, but none has been found in Britain. The Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, told MPs the variant may make vaccines less effective.
We are concerned that this new variant may pose substantial risk to public health. The variant has an unusually large number of mutations. Yesterday, the UK Health Security Agency classified B11529 as a new variant under investigation, and the Variant Technical Group has designated it as a variant under investigation with very high priority.
4 teenage boys remain in custody after being arrested on suspicion of murdering a girl in Liverpool. Police say 12-year-old Ava White was stabbed to death in the city centre. A weapon is yet to be recovered. Police are now trawling through hundreds of hours of CCTV footage and have appealed for the public's help.
We know that Liverpool was very, very busy at that time. The Christmas light switch on in Church Street had happened shortly before that. So our first appeal really is for any members of the public that may have seen anything of significance and potentially even captured something on their mobile phones to contact police.
A man has died after his car was hit by a falling tree in Northern Ireland as Storm Arwen batters parts of the UK. Wind gusts of up to 90 miles per hour have been forecast, with the Met Office issuing a red weather warning for parts of northeast England and Scotland. Motorists are being urged to stay off the roads, and London North Eastern Railway posted a do not travel alert. French fishermen have threatened to continue blocking ports until December the 10th in the ongoing dispute over post-Brexit licences. Fishing crews prevented UK ferries from docking or leaving the port of Saint-Malo before targeting Calais and Ouistreham. They also caused disruption at the Channel Tunnel. UK Cricket has agreed a 12-point action plan to tackle racism and discrimination across the game. 7 organisations, including the England and Wales Cricket Board, developed the scheme following allegations of racism by Azim Rafiq. Changes include investigating complaints, plus efforts to progress the careers of players from diverse backgrounds. You are right up to date. Now back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Karen's back at 10. You're watching Mark Dolan tonight and a fabulous Friday evening show we have lined up for you. Your weekend starts here with a heady mix of information, opinion and entertainment. God knows we need it. My Mark Meets guest is the epitome of entertainment. He's the king of comedy and the king of the jungle. Legendary funny man Joe Pasquale is live at 10. So get your questions in now. mark@gbnews.uk. In the clash with the SNP kicking off their annual party conference online, should Scotland go for independence? We'll hear from both sides on that one. We'll talk about a post-pandemic boom in plastic surgery with the top cosmetic surgeon, Dr. Richard Westreich. So what would you have done? I bet you're gorgeous and don't need anything done. Is Christmas the best time for romance? We'll speak to a top US dating expert about a new phenomenon called, wait for it, snow globing. Snow globing, in which people fall in love in the run-up to Christmas and fall out of love in the new year. Has that happened to you? Maureen Tara Nelson, the queen of US matchmaking, is here at 10:25. And how worried should we be about this new variant of COVID-19 from Botswana? You know that we don't do panic on my show, we don't do Project Fear, but we will speak to the very level-headed, knowledgeable and wise virus expert, Dr. Chris Smith, also known as one of the naked scientists. With me throughout the show is my brilliant panel, sadly all clothed this evening, including the fabulous legendary cricketer Monty Panesar, also Chloe Dobbs, and last but not least, the brilliant Hilary Freeman. Great to have all of you with me. But my priority is to get your views on the national television airwaves. You know I love hearing from you. It's the best bit of my show. So keep your thoughts coming. mark@gbnews.uk. A big 3 hours to come. It's Friday night. So uncork something strong from the fridge or fire up the kettle and let's get a brew going. And remember, we don't do boring. Not on my watch. Let's get to work. It's time for my big opinion. Now, I'm not surprised when anyone wants to flee France. Who could blame them? But illegal migrant crossings in the Channel are more than just a crisis. That's not a big enough word. They are an economic, humanitarian, and national security emergency. It's an economic emergency given the spectacular cost of accommodating people who are here illegally. Hotels, spending money, and of course, the long-term cost of housing, medical treatment, education, and other public services. Not easy, particularly if there are language and cultural issues, which in many cases there will be. The bill for accommodating these people who cross the Channel illegally is not just a financial one, but a societal one too. That costly, complex and long-term challenge of integration is only justified, in my view, for those who genuinely seek asylum from a tyrannical regime, not from the uncaring French. For those who genuinely require shelter, safety and a better life, it's essential that Britain is a welcoming country, as we always have been, to those who in many cases literally fear for their lives. And history shows the contribution of those who come to our shores can be colossal. But for political reasons, the French seem to be deliberately encouraging the situation at the moment, with no serious effort to stop boats leaving their shores, in spite of the 54 million quid that we've paid for them to do just that. In my view, President Macron has weaponized the situation in order to be seen to make the British suffer, and of course, to punish us for Brexit. Now, this guy clearly doesn't lose any sleep over Britain's suffering, societal, security, and economic pain. But he also doesn't seem to have much human empathy whatsoever, because the situation in the Channel is also a humanitarian emergency, with 27 souls having lost their lives this week. That is 27 human beings. I fear more lives will be lost if things don't change and change fast. If Macron really cared about this tragic situation, the last thing he would do is allow the cancellation of a meeting between our Home Secretary, Priti Patel, and her opposite number in Paris. With their failure to act and properly engage in this situation, the French could potentially have blood on their hands if they don't already. It reminds me of the time when Macron proudly announced that the AstraZeneca vaccine didn't work that well. Again, just another example of Britain bashing at the expense of lives. Days after those comments, thousands of Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines gathered dust in French laboratories, and take-up of AstraZeneca never fully recovered in France or elsewhere on the continent. In terms of illegal crossings, the numbers are eye-watering. At least 26,000 people have already crossed the channel illegally this year already. It was a fraction of that just 2 years ago. Over 1,000 people crossed the channel on one day earlier this month on the 11th of November. And the situation is a humanitarian emergency too, because people are not only dying, but they're being exploited by wealthy gangsters, taking thousands of pounds to send them on this treacherous route. Now, many want to see a new infrastructure in the channel, which guarantees safe passage for all incoming boats. Now, I can see their point, but that would be Christmas coming early for these evil criminals who would recruit thousands more to take this perilous journey. What's happening in the channel would go from being a business, as it currently is, to an industry. The moral case for ending this business model couldn't be stronger. 27 lost souls should be intolerable to all involved, and the ultimate argument to make this stop. But added to that, what about the thousands of people who have a valid legal claim to seek asylum in this country? What about their human rights? At the moment, they go to the back of the queue by following the rules. So we should beef up and speed up our protocols to welcome and accommodate people who seek asylum legally. But we must end what is essentially human trafficking for all the rest. So this is an economic emergency, a humanitarian emergency, but it's a national security emergency too. Some of the people crossing the channel may have valid claim to seek refuge in Britain. But why do some dump their documentation, bank cards and mobile phones into the water as they travel across? Why do some cover their faces or even run for the hills on arrival? If they have a valid claim, you have to ask why they would chuck their documents in the water. But either way, this is not how a modern democratic country like the United Kingdom is supposed to do things. If you enter Britain, we need to know your circumstances. We need to know who you are and what your background is. That's not unreasonable. And your right to stay must be assessed in accordance with the rules. Good luck trying to enter China, North Korea or Russia illegally. Or Australia, for that matter, who ended the problem overnight by crushing the gangster business model. If you go to Australia illegally, you will not receive asylum. End of. And the national security emergency is a huge one, as Dan Wootton, my brilliant colleague, pointed out in his Mail column this week. It was the current chaotic system, writes Dan, that allowed the Liverpool bomber Emad al-Swayalmin to illegally remain in the country for 7 years, working on the side to fund a bomb factory before he blew himself up outside Liverpool Women's Hospital on Remembrance Sunday. Now, hopefully this monster is in the minority, but without proper systems, we cannot be sure. Which takes us to Boris. Any Prime Minister's main role is to keep order at home and protect our borders from foreign threat. At the moment, the Prime Minister and Priti Patel are failing to do both. Not helped by French President Emmanuel Macron, who frankly, in my view, wishes ill upon this country. His government didn't like the fact that the Prime Minister put the government's proposed migrant action plan with France on Twitter. So he threw his toys out of the pram. Mr. Macron, grow up and grow a pair. Use your brain and have a heart. I'll be honest, there's guilt on both sides. Political weakness and ineptitude in Westminster, and downright obstruction in Paris. It's a perfect storm. Emmanuel Macron will continue to leverage this crisis for his own political ends because it makes him look like the tough guy. So the ball is firmly in Boris Johnson's court to get this sorted. He's going to have to act tough and demonstrate in this situation that he's more Winston Churchill than Neville Chamberlain. He got Brexit done, and I have always saluted him for Freedom Day on the 19th of July. Cases, hospitalisations and deaths have fallen, and we are the envy of Europe. But this is his biggest crisis since COVID. If he doesn't get to grips with it, there won't be a second term in power. National security is a huge issue for you, the British people. So when it comes to the economic, humanitarian and national security emergency playing out in the Channel, it's now or never for Boris Johnson. This is GB News. And with me reacting to the big stories of the day is my amazing panel tonight. Student campaigner and broadcaster Chloe Dobbs, England cricket legend Monty Panesar, and journalist and author Hilary Freeman. Hilary, if I could start with you, what's your view about what to do in the Channel?
Gosh, I mean, it's such a complex situation. There isn't one right answer here. There isn't one guilty party. It's not the French, it's not the British. And this is something that's been going on for years that really should have been sorted out a long time ago, but nobody's actually got to grips with what to do. I personally feel that by calling these people migrants, anybody who's prepared to get into a rubber dinghy and try and get across the Channel is pretty desperate. I don't think they're migrants. I think they're refugees. I don't know why we're calling them migrants. These aren't economic migrants, the people that are crossing the Channel. That's a different issue.
But we don't know who they are. That's the problem, because many of them throw their documentation into the water, Hilary.
Well, some of them do, but not all of them. And you know, my grandparents were refugees from Nazi Germany, and it's a myth that this country has always been open to genuine refugees. It's not true. Even in the Nazi era, people had to get sponsored to come over here. People didn't want them. People didn't want those people, and it's exactly the same now. And I think that we have to be a little bit more sympathetic and a little bit more understanding for the motivations of these people. And it's not the people who are trying to get over here that we should be criminalising. It's the people that are racketeering and the gangster gangs who are taking thousands of pounds to get these people in these terrible situations and put them on unsafe boats and put them across the.
Well,
channel.
Hilary, I definitely don't judge the people making these crossings. They face peril, and it's a tragedy what happened this week with 27 human beings losing their lives. But they are breaking the law, and if you facilitate these crossings, there will be more, and that will be filling the coffers of criminals.
Well, nobody's saying that we should be helping these people across, but we certainly shouldn't be. We've got to help. If they're actually there, we've got to help them. So what we've got to do is.
But they're not fleeing a war-torn country in civil war, are they? They're fleeing France.
Yes, but they haven't come from France originally. And if they might have family here, I think one of the people that they've identified who died in the latest tragedy had a partner here. You know, people are coming to their relatives. They may perhaps speak English. There may be a country that they feel that they would be welcome in because they speak English. So it's not quite as simple as saying you should just go to the first country that you end up in.
Monty?
Well, I think, look, this is a huge crisis that needs to be dealt with by the government. But let's be honest, from a humanitarian point of view, as a human race, we are all one. And if they are going to risk their lives to come into this country, then we need to facilitate that as well. Because, for people to say that, France are accountable and so are the UK, they need to come up with a solution to think, these people are desperate to, come to the UK. Why are they coming to the UK? Because UK is a multinational country that is allowing every person, doesn't matter anywhere from the world, to give you that equal opportunity. You can, this is a country that you can actually prosper. That's why they're risking their lives to come here. And if they're going to do that, then let's have a system in place. Let's have something in place.
Monty, I'm afraid to say that the world is a very cruel place and life is definitely not fair, and we don't live in a world where you can just go to other countries where you could make a better life. The idea of legal migration is it's based upon the fact that you face tyranny or potential death.
Well, then that's where the government needs to act here. They need to actually. We can't afford to have any more deaths crossing the channel. That's something needs to be addressed. And the French government and the UK, they need to come up with a plan to deal with this, because these are innocent people, or people who are paying huge amounts of money, who want a better life. From their point of view, they will risk wherever they're coming from.
Unfortunately, wanting a better life is not justification for seeking asylum in any country in the world. Unfortunately, I wish it were, but we don't live in a world like that. No country has unlimited resources with which to accommodate others, Monty.
So why do they want to come to the UK? Why aren't they going to other countries?
Well, I don't know, but it doesn't help that so many discard their documentation on arrival.
Because this is the thing about coming to the UK. People want to come to this country, and like I said, they want to risk their lives because they know it's a better future in this country. That's why they want to come here.
Why do some abscond on arrival?
Well, because, why aren't they staying in France? Because of the English language?
This is just not how a grown-up modern country does things, Monty. You just can't have people illegally crossing the channel, risking life and limb, and then running for the hills. And we need to know, and if we're going to welcome people, I agree with you, we must welcome many, and I've said that in my big opinion, but we have to know who they are.
I agree with you there, and that's why the government needs to tackle this head on. They need to actually, stop this crisis, and France as well. They need to, come up with something, because if they don't, then we're going to risk more lives. More people are going to unfortunately die, and we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, and on that we can definitely agree, Monty. Chloe Dobbs, what's your view on this?
I think that both sides are culpable of a lack of action and have failed severely. The UK government is incredibly slow at processing asylum seekers' claims, and this was incredibly bad during the lockdowns, during the pandemic, and so there's a big backlog that they need to make up. Similarly, Macron is culpable as well as a lack of action. As you've mentioned, we've paid them a lot of money to stop boats leaving that shouldn't be leaving, and they haven't done anything about it. Now, I think that regardless of your view on immigration, whether you're pro-tight immigration or you want loose immigration, I think we can all agree that if we care about human beings, we don't treat them as if it's their fault where they are born, then we have to make some priorities, and we have to prioritise those human beings who are in the most need. And in order to do that, we have to have a proper system to make sure that those asylum seekers who genuinely are from somewhere where their lives are being ripped apart, they need to be prioritised. We need a system to do that. We can't just let anyone in and let those who genuinely need it be pushed to the back of the queue.
We've always welcomed those who seek refuge to our country. I just believe that we should do it properly and with systems in place and within the law. But what do you think? My fantastic panel tonight are divided on it, so it's all about your opinions. Mark at gbnews.uk. Kev says, great sum up outlining the thoughts of many, Mark, but you let off the cost of legal aid and the endless appeals. There should be no right to remain ever for illegal economic migrants and no legal aid. The French do have blood on their hands watching these boats leave without apprehending. In terms of diplomatic conduct, Macron et al. Are pots calling the kettle black. I'll get to more of your opinions very shortly. We've got an amazing show tonight. My panel are with me till 12, and I cannot wait to hear their opinions on the big stories of the day and tomorrow's newspaper front pages. Also, at 10 o'clock, my Mark Meets guest is the king of comedy and the king of the jungle. It is none other than Joe Pasquale. Can't wait for that one. And I want to thank you so much in advance for bearing with me, because I've got a bit of a cold. It's not COVID, I'm pleased to say, and it's not the Botswana variant, but I'm definitely suffering with a bit of a seasonal cold situation. So if I lose my voice, apologies, although many of you might consider that a blessing. And if I lose my voice, I'm going to let Monty talk, because he's much wiser than I am. So after this, in The Clash, should there be an independent Scotland? See you in 2.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage. I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Big reaction to my big opinion, which I'm delighted to say George is currently crafting for a video on our Twitter feed very, very shortly. It'll be up in just a minute. But on the migrant crisis, well, I'm calling it an economic, national security and humanitarian emergency. Now, Dave has said, listening to your guest, Monty, leads me to say I speak English. I want a better life in New Zealand. But I can't go because I'm too old. Adopting Monty's thoughts, maybe I should turn up on a flight from Heathrow. I'm not sure that would work. Well, I suspect you're right. I wouldn't mind living in Santa Monica in California, Dave, so I feel your pain. How about this from Mark, who says, Mark, excuse me, it's ridiculous. Stop the hotels, stop the handouts. Photograph the individuals as they come in and ship them straight back. If they were made aware that taking the Channel trip would result in no access and, more to the point, loss of any chance of asylum, they would not come that way. Make them aware to fill in asylum applications before they enter the English Channel or be rejected by default. Make that the only way they could ever get here, and that would stop a lot of it. Mark, thanks for your thoughts on that. However, Steve says we have to show these people sympathy and compassion. They are desperate. Thank you so much for all your thoughts. I'll get to more of your opinions shortly. You know that the best bit of my show is when you write to me. So more emails coming, but it's time now for The Clash, in which we tackle a major news story from opposing points of view. As the SNP kick off their annual conference online, their deputy leader, Keith Brown, has said that the campaign for independence was well underway, despite the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. He also said the future of our planet depends on Scottish independence. The future of our planet. How does that work? Well, do you think there should be an independent Scotland? I want to hear from both sides on this one. I want to hear, if you are in England, Northern Ireland and Wales, what your view is about losing Scotland. And I want to know from my many viewers north of the border in Scotland whether you think Scotland is ready to go it alone. You can vote in our Twitter poll right now at GB News. And to debate this, I'm delighted to welcome former SNP Glasgow City Councillor Austin Sheridan. And he's joining us from the beautiful city of Glasgow. Also, Jamie Green, Conservative member of the Scottish Parliament, live from the capital, Edinburgh. Gentlemen, wonderful to have you on the show. Austin, a warm welcome to GB News. Do you think Scotland is ready to go it alone?
Yeah, I mean, I think Scotland has always been ready to become an independent country, but it'll only be with the with the consent of the people of Scotland through a referendum. So although that's my personal view, it would have to be for everyone in Scotland to decide. And once we do decide, we will be ready.
And what are the economic arguments, Austin, for Scotland going it alone?
Well, it was relatively interesting just looking at the last piece that we were talking about, the crisis that we're having in the Channel, and how we approach things. I mean, it isn't just about being financially better off. It's about the decisions that Scotland chooses to make economically, and how we choose to spend our money as well. So, I mean, I believe that there's many economic cases that we can make. There's many people on the independent side that may have a different view from me. Say, for example, the Campbell oil field. You have people like Alex Salmond who are arguing that we need that. To make a case for independence, and we've got other people on the other side of the independence, the pro-independent side, saying that we don't necessarily need that, but we should focus on renewables and the contribution that Scotland can make in that regard, which is what Keith Brown was referring to. So, as I say, there's a wide range of opinion even on the pro-independent side.
And yet, surely one of the great resources available to an independent Scotland is offshore oil, and yet Nicola Sturgeon won't touch that. Surely that diminishes the economic argument for independence.
Well, first of all, it isn't that oil isn't being touched. It's just that we don't want to do it. It's just that we're saying maybe it shouldn't be developed any further. But as I said, there's people on the independent side of the debate that may argue that those oil fields do have to be developed. So as I say, although I may have my personal opinion, and other people in the SNP and the Greens may have personal opinions in regards to that, there's going to be people on the pro-independent side that may argue that we have to develop the Campbell oil field. So as I say, one political party doesn't set the agenda. The Yes movement is a broad movement, and those arguments will be made during any pro-independence campaign once we have a referendum.
In the run-up to the referendum, of course, the argument under the leader of the SNP at the time, Alex Salmond, remember him? He actually said that that was one of the main arguments for an independent Scotland, is the vast oil wealth at Scotland's potential. It seems that by not exploring oil capacity off the coast, Scotland is choosing to be poorer. But let's speak now to your opposite number. I'm delighted to welcome Jamie Green, Conservative member of the Scottish Parliament. Jamie, what's your view? Is Scotland ready to go it alone?
Good evening, and thanks for having me on. It's good to have a constructive debate about this issue with people who disagree with me. I think too often in Scotland, the debates become very bitter and divisive. And I think really to take the sort of romanticism out of it, we need to look at the facts. And it was interesting in your question about what is the economic case for independence. I mean, I listened carefully to every word that was said, and there was no case made. Which is part of the problem here. The reality is that Scotland has a very, very high level of public spending. This year alone, it's going to top around £100 billion. Even with all the oil in the world, and we know Nicola Sturgeon's position on oil and the revenue from that, which, by the way, was the foundation of the 2014 campaign and the white paper around Scotland's future. If you take away the oil revenue, then I don't know where on earth all this money is going to come from to pay for public services. And no one in the Yes movement, no one in the pro-independence movement has ever been able to answer that question, or indeed many other fundamental questions about Scotland's economy. And I'm afraid to say it does come back down to the economy, because it's the economy that pays for the vital public services that are devolved to the Scottish Parliament. So the whole case is sunk immediately solely on the case of the economic argument, if nothing else.
Of course, Jamie, you are a Conservative member of the Scottish Parliament, and it's a Conservative government that delivered Brexit. I'm confident that Global Britain will be a huge success, but my view is that it wasn't only economic arguments that caused people to vote for Brexit. It was emotional as well. The desire to control our borders, have sovereignty, and basically manage our own economy. And that's what the Scots want, or perhaps half the Scots. Is that too much to ask? A Scottish independence is really just muck Brexit.
I've heard that phrase coined before, but again, you can coin all the phrases you like, but it doesn't answer the fundamental question about who's going to pay the public service pensions, what currency we're going to use, where all the revenue is going to come from to pay for public services like our NHS, like our teachers and our frontline police officers. All that money has to come from somewhere. Scotland already operates at a very high deficit. This year, it's going to be reaching around 22%. That's up from 8%. And let's not forget that the EU bar on accession to the EU is 3%. So, we're nowhere near that. It's just fantasy economics, I'm afraid. And it doesn't answer the fundamental question about, no matter what you feel in your heart, your head tells you how on earth is the government going to be able to afford to deliver vital public services like social care reform, COVID recovery and economic growth, all the things that our country needs. And not just that, but it's about time that the Scottish Government actually put its eye back on the ball. Nicola Sturgeon herself admitted that she took her eye off the ball. Scotland has the highest drug death rate in the whole of Europe, for example. These are shameful statistics. And that's, I'm afraid, testament of government which is focusing on the Constitution and not getting on with the powers it already has to run the country. In Scotland, and the Scottish Parliament that I sit in is one of the most powerfully devolved parliaments in the world. It's about time that the SNP focused on that and stopped marching the troops up and down the hill on independence.
Austin Sheridan, Scotland is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. It's also something of an economic powerhouse in its own right. I lived there for 4 years as an undergraduate of the University of Edinburgh, and I understand the emotional argument for an independent Scotland, and I think it's hypocritical to back Brexit but then question an independent Scotland. I think there are parallels. They're not the same, but there are parallels. Self-determination, sovereignty and freedom, and not only focusing on the economy. If there are problems, that will be Scotland's issue, and they will work to resolve that. And I think that's what you're fighting for in the SNP. But we're not kidding anyone, Austin, are we, to say that Scotland will be richer under independence? That ain't going to happen.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned there just regarding Brexit is I agree with self-determination. And for example, one of the areas I disagreed on is when the SNP took part on a UK-wide campaign for a people's vote. I was not in favour of that. I was quite in favour of England and Wales Brexiting because that's what they voted for. However, Scotland voted overwhelmingly to remain. Yeah, I agree with self-determination, absolutely. So there's not all SNP policy I agree with. But in terms of being richer, I mean, it all depends what you mean. I mean, financially richer, I believe that there certainly is a case that we can be. However, it's about where do we have our spending, our priorities, right? So do we spend, for example, hundreds and billions of pounds on nuclear weapons and on the Clyde? Do we choose to spend our money that way? Do we choose to have
security,
a draconian immigration system? For example,
illegal immigration.
People are seeking asylum, they don't have the right to work, whereas we could give them the right to work in order to contribute to our economy and contribute tax. I mean, these are the decisions that we can make as an independent country that at the moment we can as being part of the Westminster system.
Austin, we saw the Chancellor, didn't we, borrow in the direction of £500 billion in the course of the pandemic. Would an independent Scotland be able to borrow so cheaply?
Yeah, well, I mean, an independent Scotland wouldn't have to borrow that amount of money anyway. We know that much.
Well, in relative terms, does Scotland have the buying power on the international bond markets that the UK has, Austin? Of course not.
I mean, however, Scotland could have borrowing powers, but as you say, it's all about where do we prioritise the spend as well. For example, would we be choosing to spend, £100 billion on the new nuclear weapons? Would Scotland share the money go towards that?
Safe,
no.
Protecting us from China and Vladimir Putin in Russia.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point, you've mentioned nuclear weapons. This is about national security. The people of Scotland will be less safe in an independent Scotland if there's no nuclear deterrent.
Well, I don't entirely see how nuclear weapons keep us safe. There's many countries in the world that don't have a nuclear deterrent. And as far as I'm aware, they're perfectly safe. The biggest threat that we have to this country is terrorism, which is actually a policing matter. Under the SNP, we've increased our policing numbers. In England, the Tories cut policing numbers. That's where the Scottish Government had their priority, when the Westminster Tories chose to cut police numbers when they came into office. So, as I say, when it comes to our security, the Scottish Government have performed much better in that regard.
Jamie Green, an independent Scotland is partly an emotional issue. Half the people, or perhaps almost half of the people in Scotland, maybe more, they just want to be free. They want self-determination. What would you say to those people?
Well, Mark, we are free. You know, we are free. We had a referendum in 2014, which wasn't that long ago, and the Scottish people resoundingly decided to remain part of the UK. That decision was made. All parties in that referendum said it would be once in a generation, once in a lifetime, however you want to phrase it, and you can argue over how long a lifetime is these days. But the point is that it wasn't that long ago, and I really think that people watching your show and people right across Scotland will be thinking, why on earth is the Scottish Government, why on earth are civil servants that I'm paying for, that taxpayers are paying for, sitting in their offices drafting white papers on referendums about independence when we are in the middle of, and I am reminded of this daily by the First Minister, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and that is the excuse for pretty much everything that comes out of the SNP. So if we are in the middle of a global pandemic, so be it. Why on earth are taxpayers' money being spent drafting white papers on independence? They must have better things to do with their time, like focusing on the economic recovery and getting our NHS and social care system up to standards that we can deal with any future pandemics or challenges that it faces. And I think, you know, I hear your point, Mark, about the romantic element of this. But as I said, the last time in 2014, we put that argument to the Scottish people, and it came down to their wallets, came down to their heads, and it came down to the sensible decisions that we had to make about who on earth is going to pay for public services when our public spending is reaching £100 billion a year. And the UK block grant, it underpins the Scottish economy, and everybody knows that. Whether you like it or not is another matter. But to throw that away, to cut that off, why on earth would we do that?
Well, Jamie, if you're so confident
Mark,
in the case, I'll come straight back to you, Austin. But Jamie, if you're so confident in the case for the United Kingdom and Scotland staying in the Union, grant the Scots another referendum. From what you're saying, you'll walk it.
Why should we have another referendum now when there are still people dying in our hospitals of COVID, when we're still closing our borders to flights from overseas, when we heard today about a new variant of COVID, which is of huge concern to the government and which underpins most of the restrictions that we're still living under? I genuinely think that whatever your views on independence, whether you're for or against it, people right now in Scotland have other priorities. They're worried about the climate change. They're worried about the NHS. They're worried about how they're going to pay their bills, about the rising cost of energy. They're not worried about these constitutional arguments, which seem to revolve solely around what is said at an SNP conference. And I think it's about time those SNP ministers in Holyrood took their fingers out of their ears, started listening to the people of Scotland who just want them to get on with governing and being a sensible, coherent government that focuses on the day-to-day issues that really matter to people, not the Constitution.
A sensible, coherent government like the one in Westminster. I'll put a final point to you before I come back to my SNP guest, Jamie. I want to ask you, Jamie, though, the Deputy Leader of the SNP, Keith Brown, has said that the campaign for independence will actually save the planet. What's your view on that?
I mean, Keith Brown is on another planet himself at the moment. You know, what on earth is he talking about? The UK government, with the Scottish government, and bearing in mind that COP26 was a huge success in my view, and it was a good testament of how both of Scotland's governments can work together positively to influence the rest of the world, and I think we did that. But the idea that somehow Scottish independence is going to deliver you know, some sort of global you know, shift in climate change, I mean, I haven't heard any evidence to suggest how he thinks that's going to happen. I'd be very keen to hear his arguments for it. But the point being is that when we do work together, whether it's within the UK, whether it's across the world, when we work together and not against each other, that's how we can achieve things. And I think the UK government has proven that in its ambition for climate change. And these are tough decisions that all governments will have to make. But, you know, Keith Brown's living in fantasy land if he wants to direct his civil servants to start writing white papers instead of getting on with his own day job, which is sorting out criminal justice in Scotland.
Yes, I mean, Austin, what's your view about the comments of the Deputy Leader of the SNP that independence will save the planet? He's obviously been on the Drambuie.
Well, do you know something? An independent Scotland will have very ambitious targets in order to to bring down our emissions and contribute to the world. And I believe that that's the point that he was trying to make. But just in terms of what Jamie Green was saying there, in terms of COP being a success, I don't really think it was very successful when you had, the Prime Minister of the UK standing up in front of our leaders trying to persuade them that Westminster isn't corrupt. I don't think that was very successful. Very interesting as well that Mr. Green says that we should be focusing on the COVID pandemic, when in actual fact his Conservative colleagues in the Scottish Parliament have been virtually against every measure that the SNP government have taken to try and contain the virus. Also very interesting as well that he doesn't recognise the fact that Nicola Sturgeon has made clear that we won't have a referendum until we have came out of the pandemic era, or
how do you define that, Austin?
However, Jamie Green fundamentally says what gives the Scottish Government the right to start moving forward with plans for an independence referendum. Well, that's because the people of Scotland have elected the largest pro-independence majority parliament that we've seen since 1999. And in the SNP manifesto and in the Scottish Green manifesto, there was a clear commitment to hold an independence referendum. So if
coalition,
that
Austin,
doesn't give us the democratic mandate to hold a referendum, I want to put the question to Mr. Green: what is the democratic route to referendum?
What's your question? Very briefly, what's your question to Jamie?
I want to know what the democratic route to an independence referendum is, because the Scottish people have elected the largest pro-independence parliament as in favour of a referendum.
Jamie, very briefly, can you answer?
Yeah, it's an easy one. The SNP lost their majority again at the last Scottish parliamentary election.
We've got a pro-independence parliament.
You asked me a question, please let me answer. It's only through their dodgy coalition with the Green Party, and let's look across Europe and see how they work out.
Was there a Dem coalition in Westminster?
Cool your boots, Austin.
I know you don't like it, but the Scottish people decided against separation, and I'm sorry, but let's wait that generation and let's have that argument then.
Well, just on that one, right?
To both of you, a
the Unionists had a majority in the Scottish Parliament, I would have to accept it. I would have to accept a Unionist majority if it was the case.
Well, look, Jamie and Austin, I'm keen to welcome you back. Clearly, this conversation will continue. I'm so grateful to both of you for giving up a portion of your Friday evening to debate it. You were listening to Jamie Green, Conservative Member of Parliament for the Scottish Parliament. Also, former SNP Glasgow City Councillor Austin Sheridan. So what do you think? Mark at gbnews.uk. Well, on Twitter, 21% of you say that Scotland should be independent. 79% say it should remain part of the UK. Keep your opinions coming. After this, we'll find out about the new variant, the Botswana variant of COVID-19. Is it anything to worry about? Well, we don't do Project Fear on my watch, but we do information, and that's coming up next. And don't forget, my Mark Meets guest at 10 is the king of the jungle and the king of comedy, Joe Pasquale. Can't wait for that one. Get your questions in now. Mark at gbnews.uk. A big 2 hours to come, and I think my voice will hold out. So I'll see you shortly.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Is Scotland ready to go it alone? A bit of tough love from Kim, who says, Mark, reinforce Hadrian's Wall and cut them loose. No more Barnett formula, no more bailouts from the Bank of England, and move the nuclear subs to Newcastle, Hull or Chatham in Kent. All have access to the North Sea. Oh, and no pound sterling. They can print their own money. There you go. She's not pulling her punches, is our Kim. Evening, Mark, says Vicky. Another thing we need to consider is the fact that women and children in the home countries are being deserted by the men who come here. Well, that's on the migrant crossing story, which I will return to. And I'll give the last word on Scotland to John in Glasgow. Mark, the SNP only have 30% of the total electorate, hardly a majority, unless you're SNP educated. John, thank you so much. I've got so many viewers in Scotland, and 20% of those who voted in our Twitter poll think that there should be an independence referendum and that Scotland should go it alone, but almost 80% say they should stay in the family. I'll keep your views coming on that one, but the World Health Organization has designated the new highly mutated strain of COVID a variant of concern, and it gives it the rather fancy Greek name of Omicron. The Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, said there is huge international concern over the variant, but there are no UK cases. The variant has been found in South Africa, Botswana and Hong Kong, and one case in Europe. That's in Belgium. EU member states have agreed to halt travel to and from 7 African nations. The UK has now banned entry from 6 African countries, including South Africa. Clearly a cause for concern. Let's get the view now, the professional verdict of virologist and broadcaster, Dr. Chris Smith. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
Lovely to have you on the programme. Of course, you're part of the award-winning Naked Scientists BBC podcast and radio show. Let's have the naked truth on this new variant. Should we worry?
Personally, I'm actually quite reassured because the fact that we've discovered this shows that the system is working. In fact, we should be more accurate than that. The fact that the South African scientists who discovered this and shared the data internationally shows the system is working. That gives me enormous reassurance that the radar screen for viruses that we've got set up with this sort of screening program to read their genetic codes as we make the diagnoses, that's working. And it means that we can see these things. Better the devil you do know than one you don't. I'd much rather know about these things, learn about them, rather than be caught, while they sneak up on us from behind. So yes, we need to make sure we know what this thing's about. Yes, we need to take it seriously. No, we don't need to panic unnecessarily until we actually see the hard data that proves that this thing can do more than the present suite of coronaviruses, chiefly the Delta agent, can do to us already.
No evidence hitherto that the vaccine is less effective against this new strain.
Well, taking a step back, whenever you are presented with a new possible variant of coronavirus, the first thing you do is you look at the genetic code and you ask, how does this differ from the other strains or variants of coronaviruses that we already know about? And you can line the two up side by side and spot the differences. And depending upon where in the virus those differences are, it can tell you something about the likelihood that it might or might not be misbehaving. And if we look at this new variant, this Omicron, we're using Greek letters to designate these things rather than attaching them to countries of origin, then you can see that many of the changes, and there are some 30 or so mutations, tend to cluster around the part of the virus genetic code which it uses to build the spike. And on the outer coat of the viruses are all these prongs or spikes sticking out, and that's how they infect us. That is the linchpin for the virus. So if the virus changes that part of itself, A, that affects how it gets into our cells. B, it could affect how well it gets into our cells and therefore how infectious it is. And perhaps most importantly, changes there could subvert the effectiveness of our vaccines, because what we're using to educate the immune system against how to recognize coronaviruses is that part of the coat of the virus, the spike. So that's what scientists are now going to be thinking. We've got these changes, they're in the spike, but does that actually translate into a difference in the behavior of the virus? And that's where good old-fashioned data gathering, looking at the cases, how many of them are there, how often are they occurring, how well is this thing transmitting, and then simple experiments in the test tube to see, does it actually look like this thing can sidestep the protection of our antibodies or not?
Dr. Smith, might we hope that this virus will get more transmissible but weaker, as many other respiratory viruses have over the years?
It's a possible outcome, yes, and certainly an aspiration for many of us. I think that probably will be the case, and I have history to back me up. Because back in the late 1800s, there was what people originally thought was a flu pandemic, and it swept around the world and it claimed a lot of lives, including members of the British aristocracy. Members of Queen Victoria's household became victims of this mysterious flu pandemic. Actually, in more recent years, subsequent analysis has suggested that that was a coronavirus that did that. And in fact, not just any old coronavirus, a coronavirus that I guarantee both you and I have caught in our lifetimes. It's called OC43. Us virologists are an imaginative bunch, and we give viruses exciting names like that. But that virus we hadn't seen before the 1890s. It jumped into humans because there are some 5,000 or so coronaviruses in animals, and when they jump the species barrier, often when they first do that, they're pretty nasty. They're pretty nasty for several reasons, but largely because no one in the population has seen them before and everyone's susceptible. So you get big outbreaks very quickly. But over time, they change, they adapt, we adapt, and you end up at a sort of equilibrium position where the virus is a bit less nasty, the host is a bit more hospitable, and there's an equilibrium where one scratches the other one's back. We tolerate them, and in return, they leave us alone.
Well, I'll definitely take that with open arms. Dr. Smith, I'll direct my viewers to your brilliant podcast and BBC radio show, The Naked Scientist. I wish we had longer, but thanks for your cautious optimism about this new variant of COVID-19. Dr. Chris Smith, who is an epidemiologist and broadcaster to boot. Many thanks, Chris. Coming up, there's still time for you to get your questions in to my amazing guest. Yes, it's the king of the jungle and the king of comedy, none other than Joe Pasquale. And we'll find out about a special kind of romance that happens over Christmas in FAQs. So much to get through. See you in 2.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello. Storm Arwen is hitting parts of the UK this evening and hitting it hard. A red weather warning from the Met Office is rare, and we've issued this one tonight because Storm Arwen heads south through the North Sea. The winds are getting particularly dangerous across the northeastern corner of the UK, but everywhere seeing the winds picking up through the night and remaining very windy during Saturday. The red warning covers the coastal strip of eastern Scotland into northeast England, where gusts of 90 miles an hour are likely to cause structural damage and provide dangerous waves. There are also amber warnings across the northeast, but also Wales and the southwest, where gusts of 75 miles an hour are likely. And we also, on top of all the wind warnings, have some snow warnings as the weather turns more wintry down the spine of the UK. But it's really the winds this evening causing the damage down the eastern side of Scotland into northeast England. Dangerous waves, as I said, are likely ahead of significant impacts across the travel network, but also power problems too. This zone of wet weather pushes southwards with a mixture of rain, sleet and some snow, so you could wake up to a covering on Saturday morning. The winds, though, will still be very lively and potentially dangerous through much of Saturday, so warnings remain in place throughout tomorrow. There'll also be further wintry showers, a wintry mix across central and eastern England of rain, sleet and snow, turning more to rain, I fancy, as the day goes on. But certainly over the hills, there could be several centimetres across northern England and northern Scotland. Many western areas having a sunny day on Saturday, but it's going to feel cold wherever you are when you add on that wind. Really cold on Sunday morning with a widespread hard frost. Still some showers draped across eastern England, and there could be some icy conditions here as the showers continue to be wintry. Rain showers for Pembrokeshire and Cornwall, snow showers in northern Scotland, but many places elsewhere on Sunday will be sunny but very cold.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
So much to get through in the next 2 hours. We're going to find out about a post-pandemic boom in plastic surgery. So what would you have done? Let me know, mark@gbnews.uk. Also, we're going to find out about a strange phenomenon in which people fall in love in the run-up to Christmas and dump each other by New Year's. Has that happened to you? Christmas romances with a US dating expert at 10:25. But after the news, the king of the jungle and the king of comedy himself, Joe Pasquale, is live and taking your questions. So I'll see you on the other side of the headlines with Karen.
Hello, here are your headlines. The Prime Minister has spoken to South Africa's president about the global challenges to contain the new COVID variant, which has been given the Greek name Omicron. The World Health Organization says the variant carries a higher risk of reinfection and may have a growth advantage. So far, there's been one case in Belgium, but none has been found in Britain. The Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, told MPs the variant may make vaccines less effective. Meanwhile, current vaccine manufacturers are studying booster options for the new strain of COVID-19. Pfizer and BioNTech have said that they could redesign their shot within 6 weeks and, if necessary, ship a vaccine for the new variant within 100 days. Whilst Moderna have reported that it's working on an additional vaccine for Omicron, as well as testing a higher dose of its existing booster. 4 teenage boys remain in custody after being arrested on suspicion of murdering a girl in Liverpool. Police say 12-year-old Ava White was stabbed to death in the city centre. A weapon is yet to be recovered. Police are now trawling through hundreds of hours of CCTV footage and have appealed for the public's help.
Know that Liverpool was very, very busy at that time. The Christmas light switch on in Church Street had happened shortly before that. So our first appeal really is for any members of the public that may have seen anything of significance and potentially even captured something on their mobile phones to contact police.
A man has died after his car was hit by a falling tree in Northern Ireland as Storm Arwen batters parts of the UK. Wind gusts of up to 90 miles per hour have been forecast, with the Met Office issuing a red weather warning for parts of northeast England and Scotland. Motorists are being urged to stay off the roads, and London North Eastern Railway posted a do not travel alert. UK Cricket has agreed a 12-point action plan to tackle racism and discrimination across the game. 7 organisations, including the England and Wales Cricket Board, developed the scheme following allegations of racism by Azim Rafiq. Changes include investigating complaints, plus efforts to progress the careers of players from diverse backgrounds. And news just in, a US shopping mall has been locked down after reports of gunshots. Police are responding to an incident at a mall in North Carolina, where customers have been locked inside while they investigate. There are currently no confirmed injuries. We'll have more on this at 11 o'clock. You are right up to date. Now, back to Mark Dolan tonight.
So much to get through in the next 2 hours. We're going to be talking plastic surgery with a top US plastic surgeon in New York. There's a post-pandemic boom in having various treatments. Apparently, a lot of people have piled on the pounds in lockdown, so they're going for liposuction. But also, people are worried about their face because they spend so much time on screen looking at a computer, having those Zoom video calls. A lot of people are suffering from something called lockdown face. It's not great, is it? I think I've had lockdown face for years. At the moment, I've got lockdown voice, and I apologise for the slight rough timbre of my voice. I've got a cold, but I don't have COVID, and it's certainly not the Botswana version. Wasn't Dr. Chris Smith fantastic earlier? Virologist, broadcaster, speaking very calmly about this new variant. He argued that really a virus is just a bag of ingredients, and the volume of each ingredient changes with each variant, but there's no good reason why the vaccine and indeed natural immunity, remember that, won't be effective against any future variant. And I've got to say that Chris Smith speaks with some authority on that one. That's exactly what Sunetra Gupta, one of the most respected virologists in the world, has also told me on this programme. You see, there's no such thing as the science. It's all a debate, and it's a debate we will continue to have here on GB News. We're also going to be talking about something called snow globing, and this is a wonderful phenomenon in which people fall in love with each other, or their love deepens in the run-up to Christmas. Of course, it's a festive time of the year. Everyone feels really good, really cosy, and a lot of people, they seem to reach the heights of passion before the 25th of December. The only problem is they normally break up on the 1st of January. So we'll find out about snow globing very, very shortly. Lots of emails coming in on whether Scotland is ready to go it alone. Mark says, Adrian, Scotland doesn't want to be an independent country. They want to leave the UK to immediately rejoin the European Union. Jenny makes a similar point. Scottish people are not being offered independence. The question should be, which union do you want to belong to? Westminster or the EU? Sturgeon and hubby can't wait to join the EU. She has her eye on von der Leyen's job. Quicker they go, the better that Scotland will be. Scotland would be better off without them. She's welcome to take her numpties with her. On the COVID variants, Audrey says, Mark, you failed to ask Dr. Smith the vital question: were the cases with this new variant in South Africa vaccinated? The answer is yes, all cases were double jabbed. Audrey, thank you so much for pointing that out. It's very clear, isn't it, that the vaccine is effective against severe illness and death, but I think other aspects of the vaccine are oversold, particularly the idea of it stopping transmission. And if it doesn't stop transmission, which it does not, then COVID passports and other tyrannical measures cannot be justified. But of course, that's my view. What's yours, Mark? At gbnews.uk. We're trying to get the line to young Joe Pasquale. Producer Liam, what's the latest on Joe Pasquale? OK, we're trying to dial him up because his internet has let him down, and we're desperate to see him and hear him, that famous high-pitched voice of his. But we do have our panel with me. Are we able to introduce them right now? Let's do that. Monty Panesar, Chloe Dobbs, and, of course, Hilary Freeman. Now, Monty, can I start with you? Because, Monty, you have written in today's Telegraph, and you've written a very compelling article. And this is going to be part of our news agenda conversation right now. You argue in your article for The Telegraph that the former England cricket captain, Michael Vaughan, does not deserve to see his reputation trashed by the BBC and BT Sport without due process. Michael Vaughan was implicated in allegations of racism made by his former Yorkshire teammate, Azim Rafiq, which he categorically denies as completely false. So that's your view. Why did you write the article, Monty?
Well, because I believe that, Michael Vaughan is innocent until he's proven, guilty. And if you were in any normal, court of justice, the criminal process, obviously, will be that we've got to provide evidence. And unfortunately, this is something that happened, sort of 12 years ago. And, people's memories, are going to vary. We don't know what the, accurate judgment is from various other people. And if let's say if it was, if the case was true, what Azim Rafiq did say, then why haven't more Yorkshire players come up and, talked about this? So, I feel like, that he hasn't, he needs to, he's been treated misfairly here. And I think it's, deeply unethical that we can't have, Michael Vaughan's voice be heard while, the Ashes aren't. At least he can give us an analytical view that he's a brilliant, top sort of commentator. But unfortunately, the BBC feel that it's a conflict of interest. And I assume it's a temporary suspension until the Ashes are over, where, there's various sort of reports that needs to be sort of, written by the government and the ECB as well. The verdicts, the conclusions that we need to see from the parliamentary hearing, and any recommendations that are going to go forward. So I feel that the BBC possibly want him out of the firing line. And I do hope that, if there isn't any strong evidence, that the BBC sort of, bring him back, especially during the summer for Test Match Special.
So innocent until proven guilty is your argument in the article?
Absolutely. And, this is a really strong allegation, which... let's not decredit, Azim Rafiq here. These are strong allegations for Azim Rafiq, the experience that he had, and ECB are doing, have actually produced an extraordinary, 12-point plan, and it's been a monumental effort over the last couple of weeks where they've actually, want to take real action with diversity and inclusivity. But it doesn't mean that, Michael Vaughan, then, his kind of reputation gets, damaged as a media presenter.
Yes, and finally, briefly, if you can, Monty, we obviously have to take these allegations very seriously, but I agree with you in your article that it is innocent until proven guilty. It can't be trial by media or a kangaroo court. However, have you been subjected to racism yourself as a cricket professional?
I haven't experienced any racism as a cricketer myself, and I was, when I grew up, I had life coaches around me, and my goal was just to play cricket for England as soon as possible. That's what it was. So the conversations that I used to have was about performance. How do I get myself better? There's always a thing with elite performers about the 1%ers. How do you just make yourself better as a team player, as a performer? And, you know, I had a life coach and a team around me, and possibly, you know, that was my focus. And thankfully, I did play cricket for England. And Michael Vaughan was brilliant when I played, you know, for England. He wanted to bring the best out of me. He wanted the best players, you know, to play. And it doesn't matter where you're from. He just wanted to bring the best out of everyone as long as, you know, England win. So, you know, I was slightly sort of disturbed by these sort of allegations by Azim Rafiq. But, you know, Azim Rafiq also said that, you know, he doesn't want his son to, you know, play either. So, you know, the ECB are trying to help him as well. You know, he's part of the problem. But I don't want, you know, someone like Michael Vaughan's career to be sort of tarnished because of an allegation which we don't have any strong evidence.
Have the BBC and BT Sport thrown Michael Vaughan under the bus? Mark at gbnews.uk. It's a brilliant piece in today's Telegraph. I'd heavily encourage you to go online and take a read of what Monty had to say. Fascinating stuff. Well, after this, we have got a line to the king of comedy and the king of the jungle, Joe Pasquale. So he's next. See you in 2.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Fantastic support from my team tonight, Liam, Faye, and a warm welcome to Louisa. A welcome addition to the show and to the lineup here on GB News. The dream team just got bigger. It's time now for Mark Meets, in which I interview the biggest names in the world of showbiz, sport and politics. My guest tonight is the king of the jungle and the king of comedy, Joe Pasquale. One of the country's most popular comedians, Joe has been touring the nation for over 3 decades, and his popularity shows no sign of abating. As well as being a top stand-up, filling theatres around Britain, he's a popular TV host as well, having fronted the updated hit version of the game show The Price is Right, alongside many other formats, including the eponymous Joe Pasquale shows. He took part in the 8th series of Dancing on Ice, and he won Series 4 of I'm a Celebrity, which is currently airing on ITV1. Famous for his high voice and even higher gag rate, Joe Pasquale is firmly in the category of national treasure, and he joins me now. Hi, Joe.
Mark, how are you, love?
I'm very well indeed. Listen, I'm losing my voice, but that's all right because you talk for a living, don't you?
I can talk. Do you know, it's been about 15 years since we last spoke. Do you know, you interviewed me about 15 years ago when I came out the jungle. Do you remember?
I remember it vividly, and you were a gentleman then, and you were buzzing and on a career high. I mean, that was a game changer for you, that show, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I always look at it as, as you know, in any business. I want to ask you a question, though. Do you miss doing stand-up?
Hugely, hugely. And I really struggled in the pandemic, not being able to get out and see the great British public and get the audience reaction. But I do try to hit the road now where I can. How about you? Tell me about whether you've missed performing in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's been, as you know, it's been crazy for it, and it seems a little bit crass to talk about stand-up comedy with all this stuff going on. That I've been watching you talking about this tonight. But
Yeah.
As you know, the public, we still need some sort of lightness. Otherwise, it's just darkness all the way through. Every day you put the news on, there's something else coming out. It's rolling at us all the time. We still need something to lift us, even if it's just a couple of hours at the theatre. And the last time, if you're happy me talking and saving your voice, I'll talk forever, mate.
Always.
The last time. The theatres are coming back slowly and surely. We hope they're not going to drag us back into darkness again. But the last time theatre was banned, made illegal basically, was during the English Civil War in the 1640s, and Boris did the same thing. He made it illegal to put a show on. Now I understand the reasons for it, but basically it was illegal to put a show on anywhere in the country. And the last time that was the 1640s, and that happened for about 16 years. I think it was completely banned, and all entertainment went underground then. And so this was, regardless of what the audience are feeling, to come back, and I'm coming back this year to do the Panto this year, and I haven't done it, missed it last year, and it's the first time that kids growing up in this at the moment, it's going to carry on through their lives. It's going to affect them in ways that we can't imagine as adults, right? So to get a kid to be able to come to the theatre and experience live entertainment and to be able to laugh and interact with live performers is great. But on a personal level for me, I took it for granted what I've done for a living for 35 years. And to go out on stage and have that taken away, I never realised how much that defined who I was until it was taken away from me. And I live on my own. So for the best part of 2 years, wandering about on my own, without that way of expressing myself, I'm just a bloke in his pants. And that's no good for my mental health. Me in my pants isn't a good thing anyway. But when you've got no way to express who you are, it was devastating for me as for a lot of people on the mental health level. I'm pretty well balanced, and even I struggled with it. Slowly and surely it's coming back again. I'm just hoping that we can keep a grip on it. But we still need to laugh. And the last time that I was on stage properly was I was doing Some Mothers Do Have Them. I got the rights to Some Mothers Do, and I played Frank Spencer in the live stage show. And we'd done 2 weeks. We'd done a tour back a year before and previously, and it was touch and go at first. And then Quentin Letts from the Daily Mail came to see it and gave us a 5-star glowing review, and it took off. So we picked it back up again, put it back on the road last year, and within 2 weeks it was off because of the lockdown. So we're bringing it back again in March, and it's the most joyous thing I've ever done. I can't wait to get back out there. And the great thing about that show is I don't do an impression of Michael Crawford because there's no way. He's such a strong character. But there's certain characters in history like Batman and Superman and Spider-Man, all that sort of stuff that people are ingrained in people's memory, right? And then there's got the secondary characters. You've got like the Flash and this sort of stuff. And Frank Spencer is up there with Rodney and Del Boy, with Fletcher from with Ronnie Barker and all this sort of stuff. And so to bring Frank Spencer back to life in a whole new generation to witness the stupidity of this man is brilliant. I just can't wait to get back out there again. I'm trying to help you, but I'm not you, so you haven't got.
Well, no,
voice,
listen, you're so nice of you, but I've got so many questions. I mean, Some Mothers Do Have Them is one of the best and most iconic sitcoms in British television history, and that must be a very ambitious stage show, given all the stunts.
Yeah, completely. It really was, but. One of the ones in particular is one where at the very end of the show I fall down a whole flight of like 20 stairs. And the only way to do it is to literally throw yourself down the stairs. And the stuntman, we had to book the stuntman to show me how to do it. And when he did it, he actually went down the stairs. And when he got up, you could see his back, right? He hurt his back. He got up, he went, oh. I went, you all right? He went, yeah, I just hurt my back a bit there. He went, you'll be all right, though. I said, I'll be all right. I'm nearly 60 years old. You're a professional stuntman. He went, you'll be fine. I said, you do it once. I've got to do it 130 times, you spanner. And so after doing it for about a week, my legs, and there's a point in the show where I have to lose my trousers. It's a proper farce. And I've got these old pants on. You can see my legs. And by the end of the first week, my legs were black and blue. And I'd walk out this scene, and people were going, oh, look at his legs. They thought I had some varicose veins. I didn't know what it was. So I ended up having to put all this makeup all over my legs to cover up stuff that people put on spots, all over my legs. And by the end of the second week, we went, we've got to do something about this. So in the interval, I get dressed up. I'm like an American footballer with all this padding for the second half. Nobody notices my legs look a little bit chubbier in the second half because of the padding.
Pretty brutal stuff. So let's talk about your childhood. Were you a funny kid, Joe?
No, no. No, I was quite a good boy. But when I was 13, I got run over, and so I missed a year's school. I got run over really badly, and it was on my hip. And it was my first day of a paper round, and I was in traction for a few weeks, and then I was in plaster for about 6 months. But the plaster, because it was on my hip, it went from my ankle on my right leg all the way up to my waist, and then around my waist. It missed out my winkle area, but it was all over my chest. It was all over the back, and I was completely straight. I had to use a bedpan. I couldn't go up the stairs or anything like that. It was horrendous, and I had to sleep on the settee for the best part of 6 months. My mum and dad would go to bed, turn the light off, and it's just me sitting there watching horror films night after night. But as you probably know this, Mark, but if you have a plaster cast on, and I was only 13, hadn't reached puberty, nothing like that had happened yet. So I was this little completely innocent 13-year-old boy. And then when they take the plaster off, because of all the moisture and the heat and just the intensity of it all, they took this plaster off. And where it had been covered, no sunlight at all, no air to it, it had grown this like quarter-inch thick skin. I was like Jeff Goldblum in The Fly. These big black hairs all over it. I was like the Fly. Half of me was like the Fly. 13-year-old other half, it was amazing. And I looked like some freaky thing out of some horror film. And I had to start shaving just at one leg and my chest and digging this skin off. And you could actually make you could actually get a DNA off me and actually clone me from this half a body. It was just horrendous. So I missed a year's school. And from that, I ended up, I didn't get any exams at all. So I thought I'd be a comic instead. And that was it. But nearly 50 years later, here we go. I forgot how old I was then.
Joe, what was your first big break, would you say?
I went on New Faces in 1987. I didn't have an act. I used to call bingo and referee wrestling at a holiday camp. And I was also the lifeguard, right? But I couldn't swim very well. But it was only 3'6". As long as you could wade through 3'6", it was fine. And then we had a bloke come in one day. He had a glass eye. And he dived in because he couldn't see the sign saying no diving because he had a glass eye. And he banged his head on the bottom of the pool and his glass eye popped out. And all these old women were in there going, oh, he's lost his eye. And it was like Jaws. Everybody's getting out of the water as quick as they could. And they said, I can't find it because his eye was blue that he'd lost and the colour of the swimming pool was blue as well. And so I get in the water trying to find his blue eye. It was a night, we was in there for a couple of hours. And I felt it, I kicked it once, I felt it with my toe. And what I'd done, I grabbed it with my toes, I got it in between my big toe and my long toe, and I plucked it out. I said, is that it? He went, yeah, that's it. And he pulled it out from my toes, and he sucked it for a second, and he popped it back in his eye. I thought he was going to get a verruca in his eyebrow in a minute. And that was it, really. So I was doing New Faces. I ended up going on, don't ask me how, I ended up doing 5 Royal Variety shows, and I still don't know what I'm doing. I've just been basking it for 40 years, really, Mark, and I'm still here.
Basking it brilliantly. Your gag rate is incredible. Your timing is the best. Your presence. You are a comedy hero, Joe, and I absolutely doff my cap to you. I've always been a huge fan. But you haven't just mastered stand-up comedy and also live theatre performance. I'm going to mention, of course, at the end of our chat, your amazing new panto at the Theatre Royal in Plymouth. Aladdin, everything you could wish for in a panto. But before that, let's talk about telly, because you've been the presenter of The Price is Right, the Joe Pasquale shows, and lots of other hits. How has TV sort of treated you over the years?
Well, I've never been fashionable, Mark, really, as you know. But because I've never been in fashion, I've never been out of fashion. I've just been there. It's one of those things that I haven't had a big career plan. And nowadays, as you know, you can't. The business is changing so quickly, and you have to adapt. And so that's what I've tried to do, is adapt as the time goes on. And I like doing telly, but I love doing, you know what I want to do? I've always wanted to work with good people doing good good work, because, you know, if you surround yourself with great people, they make you look better. And that's what I love to do. I just like working with nice people. And as I'm getting older, you care less about what people think about you. You go, well, listen, I've been doing it a long time now. I don't do social media because it's just a platform for aggravation there, especially the way the world is changing. And all I want to do is try and make people laugh. After all these years, that's what I've done. I make myself, ultimately, I've got to make myself laugh and entertain myself before I can make anybody else laugh. And there's so much bad stuff out there. All you've got to do is just try and see your way through to it. Nothing is going to stay the same. The position we're in now isn't going to be the same. It isn't the same as it was a year ago, or 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We have to stay positive on an individual level and on a human level as well.
We do, and we must stay positive, and comedy helps us to do that. As you demonstrated in your answer earlier, Joe, comedians perform for their mental health, but we go and see comedy for our collective mental health, and it's very important that we laugh at life, and that's what gets us through. And what are your thoughts about extreme political correctness?
I can't believe you've even asked me. I think the world, listen, it's a place for everything, and it had to change. Everything had to change. It was all going the wrong way, and now it's heading in the right direction. I think it might have swung too far, but it will. But that's what happens in change. It's always in whatever changes in the world. It always goes from one side to the other. It polarizes itself, but eventually it comes back, and the pendulum will be balanced. And I think it had to go this way.
Well, because Joe, comedy's not funny anymore.
Oh, I don't know about that.
It's so PC, Joe.
Well, people say that. I always think there's a balance on everything. It's so personal. It's so subjective. What one person thinks is funny, another one thinks is complete cack. And so we have to sift our way through this and find out what is personal to you, what makes you laugh. And everybody can be offended by everything. We can choose to be offended by everything if we want to be. And for me personally, if something offends me, and in being honest with you, Mark, and being on Sally now, I'm not offended by anything because I can actually, nothing surprises me in the world now. I'm that old and seen so much in the past 2 years, not just on a global level, but on a comedy level, on a human level, on a species level. You've seen things change, and so you have to choose. If you're offended by something, don't apply yourself there. I came off social media because I was being offended by things.
I agree with that. Joe, the clock's against us. Tell us about your victory in the jungle.
Oh, do you know how long that was? 17 years ago, Marky, right? That was. It seems to me that I'd say it was no more than about 5 years ago. It was 17 years ago. I loved the experience of it. I really did. What you don't see is weird things that you don't see, right? Which is obviously different in the Cardiff Castle. But where I was in the Australian jungle, one night I woke up and there was a noise from the bushes beside me. I'm like, what is it? There's an animal there, and I put my glasses on to have a look, and there was something with great big eyes looking at me, and I focused on it, and it was a bloke with all this camouflage on, and I went, "Hello, who are you?" And he just went, "Shh." He went, "You haven't seen me?" I went, "I bloody well have." He went, "No, you haven't. Don't say nothing." I said, "Who are you?" He went, "No, don't say nothing." He disappeared. So I went up to the Bush Telegraph. I went, "I just saw a bloke in the woods." And he went, "No, you haven't." I said, "I have." And they went, "No, you haven't." So I said, "I'm telling you, I just saw a bloke in the woods. If you don't tell me who he is, I'm going to go and tell everyone there's a bloke in the woods, strange man in there." And they went, "Don't tell anyone because you haven't seen him." I said, "I'm telling you now, I've seen it. Who was it?" And they said, "It's the SAS." I went, "I'll get off." So no, and apparently they have all these. Oh, I don't know if he really was SAS. He probably wasn't. He's probably from the Scouts or something. I don't know. But they have these blokes all the time going around the perimeter, to stop all the big wild animals getting in. It was really scary.
Well, scary indeed. But listen, Joe, you talked about your age. You're as fit as a fiddle. You're the Peter Pan of comedy. You've got so much energy. Really excited about the panto. Your country needs you, Joe Pasquale. Let me tell our viewers that Aladdin, the ultimate panto, is happening at the Theatre Royal Plymouth. It will sell out. So get your tickets now. Friday, the 17th of December to Saturday, the 15th of January. Everything you could wish for in a panto and more. Joe, you're a hero. Come and see us in the studio soon, will you?
I'd love to come in, Mark. Listen, look after yourself. Look after that throat. Please let me come in. I'd love to talk to you properly and see you again.
You're a hero. Thanks, Joe. Lovely to have you on the show. Joe Pasquale there. Brilliant stuff. What a gent. And what a legend, and what a perfect guest to have when your voice is going. It's time now for FAQs, frequently asked questions, in which we take a deep dive into a specific topic in or around the news. Tonight, top American matchmaker Maureen Tara Nelson on a post-lockdown, pre-Christmas romantic phenomenon. It's called snow globing. Snow globing is defined as the seasonal relationship that seems to heat up between before Christmas and it just ends after the ball drops on New Year. So what happens is you fall in love before Christmas, or your love intensifies, and it's all over by January the 1st. So is Christmas the best time for romance or the worst? Let's speak to Maureen Tara Nelson, international dating and romance expert. Hi, Maureen Tara.
Hi, Mark. It is great to meet you and great to see you.
So good to have you on the show. So tell me about snow globing. Why does it happen?
You know, it happens because around the holidays, people want love more than ever. And let's face it, it's a really exciting time for everyone to be in love. So many people want to skip all the work that goes on into having a relationship. They want to speed up to that relationship, and they want to enjoy all the excitement of going out to family dinners, parties, work events, all these great things that come with being in love around the holidays. But then
I've got to say that Mrs. Dolan and I met on fireworks night many years ago. And so I'm an example of snow globing because definitely our love blossomed in the run up to Christmas. And in fact, I visited her mum on Christmas Day. So I'm definitely a beneficiary or victim of snow globing. Although I'm pleased to say we didn't break up on the 1st of January. No, we're just trying to get the line back because, of course, we want to tap into this.
Okay.
Maureen Tara Nelson, I know you're back. Thank you so much for reconnecting with us. So what is the best way to survive snow globing? Because it seems to be very positive in that love blossoms before Christmas. So how do we keep it going in January?
Well, first of all, you have to watch out for it because there are some predators in the dating world that purposely seek out people looking to do snow globing. And obviously, it's very hurtful, and people get hurt when New Year's Eve happens and New Year's Day, and then the relationship is over. So there's certain things that you have to look out for so that it doesn't happen to you. For example, if you're just meeting someone now, and Christmas comes and you notice that all of a sudden he is talking about getting married very soon, or things that you know it sounds too good to be true. If something sounds too good to be true, you know that it is. So if that happens, or if you see signs of that, just say, look, you're going a bit fast. I want this to continue. What do you want? And you have to pose that question to the person to find out if they really do want a relationship or not. Because you could usually tell, even if someone is doing this snow globing. And, you know, it's not a nice thing to do, let's face it. But you could probably tell when you ask them and look right in their eyes what they're looking for in a relationship, if they're going to be telling you the truth or not.
Maureen Tara, does sort of Christmas romance contain the same peril and the same jeopardy as a holiday romance?
Well, Christmas time is what I have found over my 20 years of matchmaking as the most exciting time to be in love. And it's because of all the Christmas parties, going into the cities that celebrate Christmas with their trees and their lights and the shopping and the romance and the gift giving. I mean, you can't beat it. For someone that loves love, especially me, of course, but let's face it, everyone that is single, you want to be in love. So being in love around Christmas time is the best time ever. So it's easy to find love now because most people are looking for love now. But again, you just have to be careful and you have to stay safe and you have to look out for the people that are specifically looking to do the snow globing, because we don't want someone like that.
No, and I guess if you're still talking in January, then this is the real deal.
Yes, and that again. So if you still have your relationship in January, you could kind of sit back, take a deep breath, and really enjoy the relationship now without having to worry as much. Because if things do go very quickly during the Christmas season, it is a red flag. And it does make you have to have your eyes wide open. And who really wants to do that if you're in a relationship? You know, you want the relationship to be so fun and exciting without any worries in the world. So when this snowboarding happened, it's horrible because it made people realize, oh, wait, this really could be too good to be true. You know, maybe I should ask more questions. But not everyone is going to do that. So I don't want people to not get the benefit of enjoying falling in love during the happiest time of the year, which is when you're single and you're looking. If you find it during the holidays, it is the most exciting time of the year to find love. And we have an international program. We are the busiest ever right now because of people wanting to find love during this holiday season. So it's super exciting.
Well, it's the ultimate Christmas present, isn't it, to find love? You are
Yeah,
New
so if
York's
you live
number
by
one.
you-
Well, yeah. I mean, this wedding ring clearly marks out where I'm at on this one, but there will be many people watching who are ready for some love, especially following a year and a half of lockdowns, Maureen Tara. You're New York's number one matchmaker. So briefly, if you can, what are the do's and don'ts for finding love post-pandemic?
Okay, you have to get yourself out there. We've all been quarantined. We all had it the same way. It was devastating for all of us. But the one good thing that was brought about from the pandemic is that people realize life is short and they want to really find love. We were having people calling us up saying, I don't want to die alone. So I would say some tips are get yourself out there, especially during this, cuffing season is over now and it's winter. So it's hard when someone invites you to a party. You almost automatically want to say, no, it's too cold out. You have to go. The second thing you should always be doing is telling everyone that you know that you're single, that you're looking for love, but really important that you are looking for a committed relationship. Because if you just say you're looking for love, you will get everyone and anyone just looking for any type of relationship. So you have to be careful when you're looking for a committed relationship to specify that. Then the next tip is to always exude positivity. Everywhere you go, there should be no negativity in your thoughts. When you are looking for love, concentrate and make sure that you are only putting out positive energy, because what you're putting out there is what you're going to get and receive. Then also, just don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. There are many different ways to find love. So, you might have thought before, okay, well, I would only feel comfortable meeting someone in a bar. Try something new. Don't be afraid to try something new.
Bring me back in boxes.
And
I like it too,
need
Frank.
to. Yeah, you need to just try every single way to finding love.
Well, look, Maureen, inspirational words. Your website is mtnmatchmaking.com, and you can be found on Twitter at mtnmatchmaking. Wonderful to have you on the show. Merry Christmas and happy holidays
Merry
to
Christmas
you.
to you too. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Maureen Tara. So much more to come. We are going to talk about plastic surgery after 11. There is a post-pandemic boom in tummy tucks, liposuction, bum lifts, and facelifts as well. So are you tempted to go under the surgeon's knife? We'll speak to a top plastic surgeon about what people are having done, and I'll get a personal consultation. I think most of the work needs to happen on my voice. Also, in our news agenda with my panel, is Britain running out of allies? I'm pleased to say I've got lots of allies in my team tonight because you might have noticed I've got the cold. It's not the Botswana variant of COVID, but I do have a cold, so thanks for bearing with me. And my brilliant floor manager, Natalie, has given me some drugs, which is very common in television. And on this occasion, it's Barocca. So I'll see you after the break.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
If you're joining us, we bring you the sad news that the legendary music composer and lyricist Stephen Sondheim has died. A true legend of musical theatre. We'll get more reaction shortly. But now with me reacting to the big stories of the day is my amazing panel. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Chloe Dobbs, a student campaigner and broadcaster, England cricket legend Monty Panesar, and journalist and author Hilary Freeman. Now, a leaner, more high-tech British army is on the cards after MPs were told a restructuring will take place, but the regular army will lose 9,000 troops by 2025. Meanwhile, the SNP has criticised what it claims is an attempt to politicise serving soldiers after a new union division of the British Army was announced. But Defence Secretary Ben Wallace says the plans will lead to an army that benefits all of us. So, Hilary Freeman, how do you feel about a slimmed-down army?
Well, I have to say, this is not my area at all. I know very, very little about the military. I mean, it does seem like, in some ways, it's a good idea. You know, we've been in the longest period of peacetime for, you know, than we can remember. And, you know, I'm not sure that we need to have as many soldiers as we do have. But, you know, it's dangerous not to have a regular strong army if the things do change.
Yeah, I mean, you raise, I think, a really good point. You might not be an expert, but you're a British citizen and you want this country to be safe. And perhaps there's an argument, Monty, that the threat comes from within, not out with, and that it's terrorism which is our main concern, not international bad actors, you know, enemy states, as has been the case in the past.
Yeah, look, I think, you know, UK needs to protect its borders and also for any, like you said, any form of sort of external activities, because it's vitally important, that the country that, we live in here is a safe place for everyone to prosper, but also, we don't have any sort of, attacks that's going to then make it feel unsafe.
Yes, I mean, personally, when it comes to national security, and it ties in with my big opinion piece earlier, Chloe, I think when it comes to making Britain safe, it's money, no object.
I think that on this matter, it's not the case that they are cutting money into the army. They're trying to make it more efficient, actually increasing spending into it. For example, increasing spending on more advanced technologies, which is really important. It shouldn't just all be about the number of how many army troops do we have.
It's not all about boots on the ground.
Yeah, but I think that it is significant that Boris Johnson has gone back on his promise to increase the size of the army. And money is important. It is important that it's not no object and that we are spending it in an efficient way. So if they're increasing the money going into it, but they're spending it in the most efficient way possible, I don't see an issue with that.
And of course, not only does the military abroad make Britain safer, but it gives us fantastic soft diplomatic power too, doesn't it? We can win hearts and minds abroad.
Yeah, exactly. But I think one thing I would say on this is that they're keeping the base in Germany, but we need to question what are our foreign policy priorities? Are we focusing on keeping out Russia, or do we need to be putting more of a focus on guarding off China?
Yes, I mean, one point, Hillary, is whether the UK Prime Minister and the US President could have actually stumped up the cash to keep some military presence in Afghanistan.
Well, yeah, and I think, we've left an incredible mess there, and that is the sort of place where we do need our military. But the problem is, how long would they be staying there for? Nothing's changed, nothing's got any better having the military presence, and you can't keep a military presence in a foreign country forever. Something has got to change. There has got to be a government there that is able to take over at some point. So, I think we can't necessarily be the world's peacekeeper either.
Monty, what are your thoughts ultimately about defence spending? I mean, do you think there should be a political commitment to keep it as a certain percentage of national income?
Well, the thing is, I think they're looking to cut down, the army as well, and that's something that where the Labour, Party has said that, this is not the right time to do it, and especially when I think they're going to put some, more sort of, troops in Oman and Kenya in particular. So, these are the areas, but also the funding as well. I think they're going to increase. They've increased the funding that was promised before up to 8.6 billion further. So, there is a real commitment to make our army as strong as possible. But cutting down the troops, is that really necessary? That's the area I think is possibly a slight concern.
Well, there we are. I'll get to your opinions on that shortly. Mark at gbnews.uk. But who can we call a friend of Britain these days? As the migrant crisis escalates, Boris Johnson and Emmanuel Macron are both pointing the finger over who is responsible. Today, the French president told our Prime Minister to act seriously and that he's fed up with double talk. And across the pond, Joe Biden is making tough work of a post-Brexit trade deal, whilst our quarrels with the European Union are ongoing. We find ourselves taking a beating at every turn. So should we stand our ground or begin trying to build bridges with our long-time allies? Do you think that Britain is becoming the world's most unpopular country, Chloe?
I wouldn't go as far as to say it's the most unpopular country. The media is always going to exaggerate the quarrels that go on. I think that yes, we are, of course, unpopular with the European Union, and that is not to be unexpected. I think that one thing that the Brexiteers slightly got wrong in their argument is that they argued that the EU's behaviour would be completely rational in that, it's in their interest to work with us, they need us, it's of financial benefit to them. You've got to remember that this was a massive sting to their ego. It became very emotional, and hence why people like Macron are acting like children rather than rational political agents. So, but I think that eventually they will come around, and we do need to start speeding up some of the trade deals that are happening in order to become this sort of beacon of hope and trade. But if we're patient, I think that we will get there.
Yes, I think we will. Well, let's move on to a sunnier topic. On the topic of friends, a wedding photographer in Arizona has shared the warning signs to look out for at weddings if the marriage is heading for divorce. Shayla Harrington shared the tricks that came from a much more veteran photographer when they were working together. Take a look at this.
One time I was shooting under the sweat.
Come back to me, we'll just get the sound going on that. Do you think we can sort that out? Because it's quite important to have the video on that. Let's see if we can get the audio going. She's lost her voice and I've lost my voice. Lots more to come. We're going to be talking plastic surgery with New York plastic surgeon Dr. Richard Westreich. Let's talk about signs that a relationship is in trouble, because that's what that story is about. Do you think, Monty, there's an obvious sign when a relationship is coming to an end?
Well, I think if you're taking, let's say, pictures with your friends and family at a family do and you haven't got your partner involved, apparently they say if you've taken 3 to 4 pictures and there's no partner to be seen, that's the first sign that maybe, you know, the relationship is slightly rocky. And also, you should be talking about your friends. You should be talking about your friends, your partner's friends, and that should be, you know, should do it in an admirable way, you know, in a way which actually makes you feel proud. But if that's not happening, you may dislike your partner's friends. That's another sign. Apparently, the relationship's not as smooth as it appears.
Well, Hilary, you may not be an expert on military affairs, but you are an agony aunt.
I am indeed.
So tell me about those signs at a wedding that it's not going to work out. Because I think what's great about weddings is that when you go to a wedding, you kind of like always guess about whether that relationship is actually going to last.
I think quite often it's when people are more concerned with the wedding than they are with the actual relationship. It's when they're, you know, it's all about the day, and actually they haven't discussed what they feel about each other, what their future's going to be. They literally got stuck on the wedding, and I think that's one of the big signs, really.
Yes. I sometimes find the better the wedding, the worse the marriage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I had a great wedding and I got divorced, so there you go.
There you go. Well, look, his loss, I will say that for sure. Lots more to come. We are going to talk plastic surgery with one of the world's leading plastic surgeons after 11 o'clock. What would you like to have done? I'm going to get a personal consultation, and we're also going to have a look at which celebrity plastic surgery jobs have been successful and which not so much. Also, more stories for my panel reacting to the big stories of the day. And we've got tomorrow's newspaper front pages. So do find out why Jamie Oliver is in the news and much, much more. So see you shortly. Keep it GB News.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello. Storm Arwen is hitting parts of the UK this evening and hitting it hard. A red weather warning from the Met Office is rare, and we've issued this one tonight because Storm Arwen heads south through the North Sea. The winds are getting particularly dangerous across the northeastern corner of the UK, but everywhere seeing the winds picking up through the night and remaining very windy during Saturday. The red warning covers the coastal strip of eastern Scotland into northeast England, where gusts of 90 miles an hour are likely to cause structural damage and provide dangerous waves. There are also amber warnings across the northeast, but also Wales and the southwest, where gusts of 75 miles an hour are likely. And we also, on top of all the wind warnings, have some snow warnings as the weather turns more wintry down the spine of the UK. But it's really the winds this evening causing the damage down the eastern side of Scotland into northeast England. Dangerous waves, as I said, are likely a hood of significant impacts across the travel network, but also power problems too. This zone of wet weather pushes southwards with a mixture of rain, sleet and some snow, so you could wake up to a covering on Saturday morning. The winds, though, will still be very lively and potentially dangerous through much of Saturday, so warnings remain in place throughout tomorrow. There'll also be further wintry showers, a wintry mix across central and eastern England of rain, sleet and snow, turning more to rain, I fancy, as the day goes on. But certainly over the hills, there could be several centimetres across northern England and northern Scotland. Many western areas having a sunny day on Saturday, but it's going to feel cold wherever you are when you add on that wind. Really cold on Sunday morning with a widespread hard frost. Still some showers draped across eastern England, and there could be some icy conditions here as the showers continue to be wintry. Rain showers for Pembrokeshire and Cornwall, snow showers in northern Scotland, but many places elsewhere on Sunday will be sunny but very cold.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
A busy last hour to come. Top cosmetic surgeon Dr. Richard Westreich joins me to discuss the post-pandemic plastic surgery boom, and he'll giving me a consultation. Where do you start? We'll also get tomorrow's newspaper headlines tonight with my panel in the news agenda. But first, the latest headlines with Karen.
Thank you, Mark. These are your latest headlines. The Prime Minister has spoken to South Africa's President about the global challenges to contain the new COVID variant, which has been given the Greek letter Omicron. The UK has imposed strict travel restrictions on 6 African nations after its discovery. The World Health Organization says the variant carries a higher risk of reinfection and may have a growth advantage. So far, there's been 1 case in Belgium, but none has been found in Britain. Meanwhile, current vaccine manufacturers are studying booster options for the new strain of COVID-19. Pfizer and BioNTech say they could redesign their shot within 6 weeks and, if necessary, ship a vaccine for the new variant within 100 days. Moderna have reported that it's working on an additional vaccine for Omicron, as well as testing a higher dose of its existing booster. 4 teenage boys remain in custody after being arrested on suspicion of murdering a girl in Liverpool. Police say 12-year-old Ava White was stabbed to death in the city centre. A weapon is yet to be recovered. Police are now trawling through hundreds of hours of CCTV footage and have appealed for the public's help.
Know that Liverpool was very, very busy at that time. The Christmas light switch on in Church Street had happened shortly before that. So our first appeal really is for any members of the public that may have seen anything of significance and potentially even captured something on their mobile phones to contact police.
A shopping mall in North Carolina is being evacuated after reports of gunshots. Durham police say they are responding to an incident at South Point Shopping Centre. Shoppers were initially locked down inside. The force say there are no further threats. At least 44 Extinction Rebellion activists have been arrested after causing blockades at Amazon warehouses across the country on Black Friday. The protesters hope to draw attention to alleged exploitation of Amazon workers and are urging the company to cut its emissions. Amazon have said they are working to minimise any potential disruption to customers. A man has died after his car was hit by a falling tree in Northern Ireland as Storm Arwen batters parts of the UK. The Met Office has issued a red warning for wind with gusts of up to 90 miles per hour forecast. Motorists have been advised not to travel under any circumstances along parts of East Scotland and North East England, while some train services have been scrapped altogether. And Stephen Sondheim has died at the age of 91. Known for musicals including Sweeney Todd and West Side Story, the American composer and lyricist reportedly died at his home in Connecticut. Theatrical producer Sir Cameron Mackintosh said his legendary songs and shows will be performed forevermore. You're right, up to date. Now back to Mark Dolan tonight.
It's 4 minutes past 11. A first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages before we get to Uncensored. And let's start, shall we, with the I newspaper. UK battling to hold back Omicron. Race against time as Test and Trace tries to find thousands of people who flew to Britain in the past fortnight and may be infected with new variant of concern. Well, I don't like that headline, UK battling to hold back Omicron. It's the kind of panicky omni-crap that we've had throughout this pandemic from so many parts of the media. I might have lost my voice, but I haven't lost my opinions. OK, how about the Mirror? Let's take a look at this newspaper front page. Pandemic bombshell. COVID variant already in the UK. Experts warn of new virus wave. Threat of tighter curbs by Christmas. It's the usual panic playbook from so much of the press. Let's go to the Mail now, and here's their headline. Keep calm and don't let new COVID ruin Christmas. Experts say jabs will work on the variant, and Whitty, people will not accept new curbs. How right he is. Telegraph, Whitty, new variant less worrying than Delta. The Independent, Britain braced as new variant reaches Europe. You can just tell the zeal with which they write these headlines. The Times newspaper, migration snub will cost lives, French told, which ties in with my big opinion monologue, which is now available on Twitter at GBNews. Daily Express, new COVID variant is threat to Christmas. Richard Madeley, my funny turn put me in hospital, but I'm a celebrity was brilliant. Last but not least, The Star, Jamie Oliver can't make toast. Cordon Bleu, Chef Jamie Oliver has still not mastered the art of toasting bread, and the fire brigade was called after smoke alarms were triggered. You couldn't make it up. And how about The Guardian, last but not least? The Guardian, alarm as new COVID variant Omicron spreads to Europe. And there you go, those are your newspaper front pages. Lots more to come. I'll get reaction from my panel. Looking forward to that one. But it's time now for Uncensored, in which we tackle the dark underbelly of the news agenda. Yes, indeed, it's time now for Uncensored. We're seeing a post-pandemic boom in plastic surgery, according to the papers this weekend. Following lockdown, many of us have piled on the pounds, and thousands are reported to be seeking treatment so they can look their best for those online video call meetings on Zoom. So is plastic surgery an example of aspiration and self-improvement, or a dangerous addiction which can leave patients with lasting damage? To debate this, I'm going to include my panel, and I'm delighted to welcome one of the most in-demand plastic surgeons in the United States, top New York plastic surgeon, Dr. Richard Westreich. Hi, Richard.
How you doing? Nice to be here.
It's great to have you on the show. I could do with some plastic surgery on my vocal cords this evening. Forgive the husk in my voice. Let's talk about plastic surgery. Are you getting more bookings than ever, Richard?
Yeah, 2020 and 2021 have really been an interesting time for my practice. You know, at first we thought after the pandemic that potentially things were going to be a little slow. But right from the gate, things just went really fast and patients were really interested. And then I thought, okay, well, the vaccines have come out and people are starting to move on a little bit. Maybe things are going to slow down, but none of that happened. It just keeps getting busier and busier.
Asking for by way of treatment, Richard?
Well, interestingly, the types of treatments that patients have been seeking are different now than they were before the pandemic. For example, in 2019, the top two procedures were breast augmentation and liposuction. But in 2020, the top two procedures were rhinoplasty and eye lifts. So people are paying a lot more attention to their face these days, I think because of the Zoom boom and the fact that everybody is an on-air personality.
So rhinoplasty, why so much work on the nose?
Well, I think it's a matter of when you see yourself, you have an opinion about what bothers you the most. And they did a couple of studies, and one of the studies showed that the number one thing that people were concerned about in terms of their personal appearance was their nose, followed by eyes and lips. And so I think people, when they're bothered by something, they seek solutions. And because there's so much attention right here now, they're looking for facial solutions, and the nose is kind of a key one there.
And has plastic surgery improved over the years?
Well, I hope so. But no, absolutely, it has. Techniques have definitely improved. We've found ways to become less invasive. We've found ways to enhance recovery. And so I do think that what we do now is definitely better than what we did 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. And probably in another 5 or 10 years, people will be kind of saying that what we're doing currently wasn't good enough either. So we just keep getting better and better, and that's a good thing.
So obviously there's a lot of focus on the face because of all of the amount of time we spend on video now. If somebody came to you, let's say, with really puffy eyes, like bags under their eyes, how would you eliminate that problem?
So there's two basic ways that you're going to address that. Number one, some people have a volume problem right underneath the eyes. And so those type of people will be best treated with filler. While other people have a puffiness problem, it's a little higher up, it's on the eye itself. Those people are going to need surgery to get rid of those eye bags. And sometimes you do both, but it's usually one or the other.
And what about crow's feet? Can we eliminate crow's feet, those little lines on the side of your eyes?
Yeah, those are easy. That's just our good friend Botox.
Perfect. That's a simple injection straight under the skin. Well, let's bring my panel in on this. Delighted to have Chloe, Monty and Hilary. What are your thoughts, panel? Hilary, I think you've written about this.
As a medical journalist, but also I did an article where I had to go along and have a kind of simulation of what I'd look like after various plastic surgeries. And the result was just very strange. I didn't look anything like myself. And lots of people said that I actually, although aesthetically, I probably looked better afterwards because I was, I had a smaller nose and I had a perfect proportioned everything. I didn't have any character in my face. I didn't look like me. And I think that that's the danger that people, having plastic surgery and they're eliminating all the character from their faces. And most people who I know who've had a lot of Botox or fillers just end up looking like people who've had loads of Botox and fillers. They don't look better, they don't look younger, they just look odd. And I think it's really sad that people feel they have to change themselves.
Richard?
Well, that can definitely happen. I think that, there are many different types of people in this world and certainly many different types of plastic surgeons. I, for one, tend to be a bit conservative, and I always try and make sure that I'm not just a yes man. I think the people that wind up looking really strange walk into offices where no matter what they ask for, that's what's done. Plus, I always say to my employees, there's only 3 things you can't teach somebody. But one of the 3 is relevant to this conversation, which is good taste. So, your plastic surgeon can have bad taste and the patient can have bad taste. And when they both have bad taste, it doesn't turn out so good.
Chloe, you're far too young to have plastic surgery, but would you consider it in the future?
I don't think I will. I think that if I was, say, in an awful car crash and my face was all messed up, I think that I perhaps would do something to that. There's a balance somewhere. It's not the case that all attempts to improve ourselves are, an addiction. The reality is we all brush our hair. Most girls put some makeup on. We all do something. But it is the case that, as Hilary said, it is quite sad how a lot of people, they get addicted to this and they end up making themselves just look awful. And I expect that they just start putting higher and higher standards on themselves and are never actually satisfied and just get more miserable. But I'd be interested to see if this rise in demand for plastic surgery has followed in Britain as well as the US. I think in the US there's much more of a focus on perfecting our appearance. Everyone has braces, everyone has teeth whitening, but we don't have as much as a culture of that here.
Monty, how about you? Have you been offered any procedures?
Well, not yet, because I believe I've got the perfect face. But but to be honest, I think for people to have plastic surgery, it's probably one of the reasons that they want to find happiness and peace maybe within. And if that allows them, to achieve that, then, why not have the plastic surgery? And, there must be several reasons, for confidence, to feel good in society. And also, possibly if they got, careers on TV, they need to look, presentable, and they feel that plastic surgery is one option to look better. But I think ultimately, if a person within is happy and peaceful, then, you may not need that plastic surgery. And it'd be interesting to know from the doctor, do people come actually for that reason, to find happiness in their lives for the procedures that they have?
Well, I don't think they typically overtly state that. But what I will say is that probably 90+% of my patients come in with a single thing, a single problem that bothers them. And then my experience is when you remove that problem, you can see their confidence and their kind of happiness go up, and they don't necessarily come back for more things. So it's actually our job to try and, sniff out people who are doing it for the wrong reason. You never want to operate on somebody who's doing it to please somebody else or for some other kind of external factor where they're going to perceive a reward. Those are very dangerous situations because those are generally patients that won't wind up happy, even if you do a perfect job.
And Richard, you're the best at what you do. And the trick to good plastic surgery is it doesn't look like you've had plastic surgery.
Exactly. So, I mean, you obviously notice all the bad work, but you don't notice the good work. Thank you for saying I'm the best. There's a lot of very skilled people who produce some good work. And those are things that are really going to go unnoticed. So, it's sort of like, reviews online, right? You get 2 polar ends of the spectrum, and then you miss the entire center of the conversation. So, we notice the bad ones, but, there's a lot of good ones out there. I can tell you from personal experience.
Well, let me place you in the consultant's chair right now. I'm going to show you some mugshots taken by my team earlier in the show when I had a working voice. So looking at my profile images there, how do you think I could improve my face, doctor? What work could be done to make me better?
I think I'm going to start with the dinner party response, which is you're perfect and you don't need anything. With the secondary question of, but is there anything that bothers you?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder whether that chin is starting to droop a little bit.
So, you're on TV, so you're doing pretty good. I'd say if this is something that is troubling, then that's not a very challenging thing to correct. Actually, that's one of the areas where you can do some minimally invasive procedures that actually work quite nicely, especially if you're not looking for, an 18-year-old's chiseled jawline. If you're just looking for improvements, then you can do that, quite easily.
Well, I've got quite a heavy front brow as well. Some would consider it a slight Neanderthal brow. Is there anything that can be done about that ridge at the front?
Well, there's not a lot of options. Basically, we go back to Botox for things like that. But, I usually say, if you're worried about your forehead, the best result is usually to try and meet somewhere in the middle. So, maybe we'd add a little coverage up top. I'm not sure, but just to shorten things up. But again, I think that Botox would be a personal decision, as to whether or not you want to have any loss of expression, and it's counterbalanced by that line. You can do it, but it has to be done very, very tactfully.
I know that you specialize in the face. And there are some procedures where you can use a little bit of liposuction, but liposuction is largely and mainly used elsewhere in the body. Does liposuction actually work, in which you literally suck out the fat from someone's body?
It definitely works. What it always needs to be thought about is a way of changing shape. Paradoxically, fat is one of the lighter tissues in the body. So you don't really lose weight from even getting large amounts of liposuction. It's really about just changing your personal deposition shape. If you then gain weight, you're not going to gain the weight back in the areas that you had the lipo, but you're probably going to gain it right next door. So, it doesn't work in isolation. Patients have to do their part, but it definitely works.
Perhaps I could ask for your professional overview of a few stars that may or may not have had plastic surgery. For example, the presenter Sharon Osbourne, wife of Ozzy. Let's take a look. Let's see whether we can get that image up. Sharon is a big fan of looking her best. We know that. I've interviewed her in the past. She's a great lady. But we're going to source a picture of Sharon, and get your verdict. Do we have any other celebrities ready? Let's go for Anne Robinson. Let's take Anne Robinson first. There we are. What do we think? How's Anne looking? What's your verdict on Anne Robinson, Doctor?
Well, let's say first off, I think she's looking really good. I mean, her jawline is still, quite nicely defined. I'd probably say that unless she did something in the past, she probably hasn't done anything recently. Doesn't even look like she's doing much of the Botox fillers. I think she's mostly aging gracefully.
Okay, how about Sharon Osbourne? Here she is.
All right, so Sharon also, I don't think has had any major procedures, but I would, if I had to guess, I'd say she's probably had her upper lids done. She's definitely had some filler and certainly some Botox. Ultimately, the question, that hairstyle, is she covering up, maybe a mini facelift scar? It's possible. But I think, nothing too major. And the facelift is just, only again, because she's got a nicely contoured jawline, but definitely upper lids and some Botox filler.
I think she's gorgeous. Let's finish on the late Michael Jackson.
I mean, you should have asked me what he didn't have done.
Yeah.
It'd be a much shorter list. I think he's one of those examples of people who obviously had some internal turmoil that then, played out in terms of their surgical goals. But I think his surgery has been very well documented. Multiple procedures. The chin, the nose, eye procedures. His story is a cautionary tale.
It most certainly is. Richard, you've been a great sport and a mine of information. How can people find out more about what you do?
Well, I'm in New York City, so it's not that hard to find me. And, my website, newfacenewyork.com. And I always love Instagram. Instagram's a great media these days for getting some information out. And that's also New Face NY.
Amazing privilege to have you on the show. Top New York plastic surgeon, Dr. Richard Westreich, who has said, I don't need that much work done. What a relief. Well, lots more to come. We're going to react to the big stories of the day with my amazing panel, including a brand new Great British game show, Dolan's Deals, Black Friday Price is Right. That's coming up. That's right. We always play a game show based around a story of the day before the end of the programme. But after this, should we stop world monuments like Notre Dame being vandalised by the woke mob? I'll see you in 2.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Can I thank you so much for your emails about my voice? I'm so grateful. And my voice was robust earlier in the day, but clearly the lurgy has caught up with me. I want to thank you because I've had so many messages saying, well, keep up the good work, but also ideas about how to actually treat my throat. I suspect it probably just needs a bit of a rest. I've got the lurgy, I've got a cold, not COVID and not the Botswana variant. Elizabeth has said, well done, Mark. You're clearly struggling a bit with the cold, but if it cheers you up, Rod Stewart would be jealous. And yes, you even sound a bit sexy. Liz, thank you so much for that. A few emails. Peter, there are American troops in Japan, Korea, helping to keep the peace. The claim that we can't stay indefinitely is simply not true. If it helps, then stay. Troops were living safely until the withdrawal. Elizabeth, cutting the army yet again. All you need to know about this is that we're spending the entire proceeds of income tax, capital gain tax, and inheritance tax and stamp duty on the NHS. Too much money. And finally, Caroline, it's very dangerous to reduce the British Army by 9,000. I totally agree with you that the enemy is now within. Thank you, Caroline. Get some more of your thoughts shortly, but with me reacting to the big stories of the day is my amazing panel. Student campaigner and broadcaster Chloe Dobbs, England cricket legend Monty Panesar, and journalist and author Hilary Freeman. Now, in the last hour, it's been confirmed the legendary musical theatre composer and lyricist Stephen Sondheim has died at the age of 91. The New York Times reported the lyricist died at his home in Connecticut in the United States. The American composer is perhaps best known for writing the lyrics of West Side Story and crafting the Tony Award-winning shows Sweeney Todd and Into the Woods. The musical theatre producer Cameron McIntosh, who named a venue after Sondheim in the late 2019, said in a statement the theatre has lost one of its geniuses and the world has lost one of its greatest and most original writers. Sadly, there is now a giant in the sky, but the brilliance of Stephen Sondheim will still be here as his legendary songs and shows will be performed forevermore. Goodbye, old friend, and thank you from all of us. Well, a great loss to the world of musical theatre. Hilary, were you a fan of Stephen Sondheim?
I was. I'm really sad to hear this news. When it came on the news earlier, I was sort of, a little pang of upset. He was genius, and I think what you were saying about just now that he wrote the libretto to West Side Story, but what he didn't say was he was in his early 20s, I think, when he wrote that. He's just a genius, and his ability to both write music and words, is pretty unparalleled.
Well, that famous song, Maria, Maria, I just met a girl named Maria. I want to live in America. All those amazing, iconic songs.
Yeah, just fantastic songs and things like Company and Sweeney Todd. So many brilliant things. And he will be a huge loss. There is nobody like him, really.
No, definitely. If you're looking for any recommendations, do check out the soundtrack to West Side Story. It's also a great movie as well. Now, the iconic Notre Dame Theatre, sorry, it's a theatre, we're back in theatre, the iconic Notre Dame Cathedral, which was devastated by a fire in 2019, faces a woke revamp dubbed as politically correct Disneyland. The inferno caused severe damage to the Paris landmark, both inside and out. Luckily, the exterior of the medieval cathedral is expected to be restored to its original design. But the Telegraph reports controversial plans risk turning the inside into an experimental showroom. Under the proposed changes, confessional boxes, altars, and classical sculptures will be replaced with modern art murals and new sound and light effects to create what are being described as emotional spaces. There are plans to have themed chapels on a discovery trail with an emphasis on African and Asian history, an entire chapel dedicated to the environment. So, Chloe, do you think that there's a danger that in reimagining this medieval cathedral that we're erasing its history?
Yeah, I think absolutely. It's an incredible site. I was lucky enough to go visit it on a school trip when I was younger.
Before the fire?
Yeah, before the fire. Back in...
You didn't smoke when you were there, did you?
No. This was back in 2013.
You just pop outside for a cheeky fag.
And to have them just destroy that cultural heritage like that, so that no one going forward, the kids who go on the school trips after me never get to see that, I think is a great loss. And the question is, what they are bringing, is it something better? I really doubt that these, emotional rooms, or whatever they're calling it, is going to be something better. I think it's going to be, a bit boring, quite frankly.
Yeah, what do you think, Monty? Does Notre Dame need a makeover?
Look, I think it should be kept to, how it was originally. And that's the thing about, when you go to a place of history, of significance, you learn so much about, what happened, during that time. And it gives you, that sort of sense of, belonging or a sense of, whatever your, whatever history or whatever your part, what you're learning about. It's important that it's, kept to its, original state, because by changing it, you're going to feel like it doesn't have the same feel, and it's so important that, any of these historical places that we have, are kept to their original form, because that will, you learn so much, about the history of that place, and it's vitally important.
I disagree.
Yeah, go on, Hilary.
You look at something like St Paul's. St Paul's is not like it was before the Fire of London. It was rebuilt entirely, and it was rebuilt in the style of that time. And that doesn't mean that it's worse than the original. We think of it as an amazing building. If it was on fire now and we rebuilt it now, we'd have the same argument. I think things move. Most churches that you go to, huge churches, you'll find that this bit was from the 13th century, that bit was from the 17th century, that bit was from the 19th century. Things are organic. They move with the times. They don't just stay. History is great, but I think that you can also learn an awful lot by having things from different periods in the same place. And, you know, Notre Dame, the sort of fundamental outside of it will be the same. So I don't think there's anything wrong with having new things inside that people can learn about as well.
And of course, the French had great success with the Louvre Museum.
Exactly, yeah.
They put a massive glass pyramid in the middle of this rather esteemed old building.
Which I'm sure people are up in arms about, but actually now it's something amazing to look at.
I mean, there was talk of Notre Dame having a new roof, completely different modern design.
That's
One
right.
proposal suggested a swimming pool on top. Does that get you closer to God, being in the water? I think so. You go underwater and
the hunchback dive.
Pray for forgiveness.
Instead of jumping, who dive into the pool.
Well, fascinating stuff. Look, really, really tough news for you. A man has been very sadly killed by a falling tree as Storm Arwen continues to bring high winds, rain and snow to the UK. Drivers in affected areas have been told they should not travel under any circumstances by police. The Met Office has issued a rare red wind warning as Storm Arwen batters the country, with gusts forecast to be as high as 90 miles an hour and waves as high as 10 metres. The red warning stretches along the east coast of Britain from Middlesbrough to beyond Aberdeen until 2 a.m. tonight. It's the first maximum alert to be issued for almost 2 years. Pretty tough stuff. Well, look, do try to stay safe. And obviously, I'll say, it's a very obvious thing to say, but try to avoid any journeys if they're not absolutely necessary. And I do hope everyone's going to be all right. It's going to be a really, really rough few hours for many people in this country as we battle those storms. Now, Barry Humphries, a.k.a. Dame Edna, left presenters Dermot O'Leary and Alison Hammond in hysterics after he mistook Dermot O'Leary for Philip Schofield and congratulated him on coming out as gay. Take a look. I think the best bit about that clip is Alison Hammond's wonderful laugh. Now, the clip's gone viral online, and many are questioning whether the comedian deliberately got the two presenters mixed up, which obviously he did, didn't he, Hillary?
Of course he did. She started laughing before he'd even said it. All he said was congratulations.
Yeah.
So she knew what he was going to say, and you could tell. It's part of his act, it's part of his shtick, isn't it?
Of course it is. Yeah. Actually, Chloe, you probably don't have a clue who Barry Humphries is.
Absolutely no idea.
No, and
too young.
My team, who are very young and very talented, didn't know, apart from Matthew, had a sort of inkling as to who he was. Do you know about Dame Edna Everidge?
No, I don't myself.
So it's just
God,
you and me, Hillary, flying the flag for Stephen Sondheim and for Dame Edna. Of course, this was an amazing character. He played a sort of Australian housewife.
Yes.
Barry Humphries is a man playing fictional female character of Dame Edna.
I wonder if he'd be able to get away with it now.
What do you think?
I don't know. I'm not sure he would.
I mean, you could argue it's very ahead of its time. It's quite progressive, really.
Well, it's not, though, is it? Because there's a massive history of dames, isn't there? Pantomime dames that we've got. And you know, Shakespeare, men played women then. So actually, it's not progressive. It's actually
I mean, is men dressing up as women if they're not a trans woman? Is that gender blackface?
Well, I think it probably would be seen as that now, yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a worry, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, I've got to say that Barry Humphries is one of my absolute comedy heroes, a total legend. Well, lots more to come. As always, at this point in the show, we play a game show based around a news story of the day. It's our Great British Game Show. And tonight, Dolan's Deals, we're going to play a Price is Right Black Friday special because it is the tail end of Black Friday. And I'll be asking my panel to work out the bargain, and I want you to play along at home. Plus, after this, do we need more male role models? But first, the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello. Storm Arwen is hitting parts of the UK this evening and hitting it hard. Red weather warning from the Met Office is rare, and we've issued this one tonight because Storm Arwen heads south through the North Sea. The winds are getting particularly dangerous across the northeastern corner of the UK, but everywhere seeing the winds picking up through the night and remaining very windy during Saturday. The red warning covers the coastal strip of eastern Scotland into northeast England, where gusts of 90 miles an hour are likely to cause structural damage and provide dangerous waves. There are also amber warnings across the northeast, but also Wales and the southwest, where gusts of 75 miles an hour are likely. And we also, on top of all the wind warnings, have some snow warnings as the weather turns more wintry down the spine of the UK. But it's really the winds this evening causing the damage down the eastern side of Scotland into northeast England. Dangerous waves, as I said, are likely ahead of significant impacts across the travel network, but also power problems too. This zone of wet weather pushes southwards with a mixture of rain, sleet and some snow, so you could wake up to a covering on Saturday morning. The winds, though, will still be very lively and potentially dangerous through much of Saturday, so warnings remain in place throughout tomorrow. There'll also be further wintry showers, a wintry mix across central and eastern England of rain, sleet and snow, turning more to rain, I fancy, as the day goes on. But certainly over the hills, there could be several centimetres across northern England and northern Scotland. Many western areas having a sunny day on Saturday, but it's going to feel cold wherever you are when you add on that wind. Really cold on Sunday morning with a widespread hard frost. Still some showers draped across eastern England, and there could be some icy conditions here as the showers continue to be wintry. Rain showers for Pembrokeshire and Cornwall, snow showers in northern Scotland, but many places elsewhere on Sunday will be sunny but very cold.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Reacting to the big stories of the day, my amazing panel: student campaigner and broadcaster Chloe Dobbs, England cricket legend Monty Panesar, and journalist and author Hilary Freeman. Now, Tory MP Nick Fletcher has caused controversy after sharing his concerns around young boys lagging behind at school and turning to crime as a result of the lack of positive male role models. The Conservative MP blamed the recasting of male heroes with women, mentioning the likes of Doctor Who during his remarks at a Westminster Hall debate on International Men's Day. Fletcher later released a statement saying his nuanced point has been misconstrued. He said, "My point was, in fact, a straightforward one, and in no way linked to Doctor Who being a female. Let's take a look.
Everywhere, not at least within the cultural sphere, there seems to be a call from a tiny yet very vocal minority that every male character or good role model must have a female replacement. One only needs to look at the discussion surrounding who will play the next James Bond. And it's not just James Bond. In recent years, we have seen Doctor Who, Ghostbusters, Luke Skywalker, The Equalizer, all replaced by women. And men are left with the Craze and Tommy Shelby. Is there any wonder we are seeing so many young men committing crime?
So further clarifying his point, he said, my point was, in fact, a straightforward one, and in no way linked Doctor Who being a female to crime being committed by men. As has been alleged rather lazily by several individuals, I did not link Doctor Who to being female to crimes being committed by men. Boys need positive male role models, and that is a point that I will continue to reiterate and never apologise for making. But is he right? Do young boys lack male role models? Monty, you've been the ultimate male role model over the years, a hero to many.
Yeah, well, look, I think, sports people who are doing really well right now in their own field, the likes of, come to mind, like Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, look at the comeback he's made. We've got, Joe Root, our golden boy, who's, been phenomenal form. Ben Stokes making, a comeback in cricket. We've got Marcus Rashford, Harry Kane, even Gareth Southgate. Sports is such a powerful medium that brings so many people together that young, boys, males, they look up to, people of sports people in our country. And that's where they should look up to, some people who've sacrificed themselves, to get to the top, the perseverance, the patience, the hunger, and, all these values that you need to succeed in life. These sports people have it in abundance.
Yes, Hilary, do you think we're underestimating the value of some of those very primal male qualities, even toxic masculinity?
Well, I think that this whole thing is ridiculous. I mean, male role models, every role model in history until recently has been male. Moses, Jesus, even God's supposed to be a man, for heaven's sake. You know what I mean? It's like it's always been men. And when, the role models that make a difference in boys' lives are the men in their lives, are their fathers, their uncles, their teachers. Not what's, you don't have a kid watching Superman and going, I'm going to be a good boy because Superman's good. It just doesn't work like that. So I think there are plenty of good role models, and actually trying to overturn some of the paternalism in our society by having female Ghostbusters, for example, when there's no reason in the world where you can't have female Ghostbusters. There's no reason in the world where you can't have a female Doctor Who, who's an alien anyway, not a human. It makes no difference. But
there's talk of a female James Bond. I mean,
yeah, I don't agree with the female.
No, I think it's disservice to women because you can create great characters that are female without having to sort of piggyback some of the male personas.
But by helping women to become, to have more prominence in society does not make men turn to crime. It does not make, you can have both.
Are men having to apologise, Chloe, for being men these days?
I think that they are, and I think that they decided that we've got to replace all of the males on shows and with female role models instead. Is the wokery going too far? I think that yes, we should have female role models, and Hilary is right that most role models and big authoritative figures have. Not authoritative, but confident figures are often men in history and in shows that we've seen. So it's not necessarily a bad thing if we start seeing more women coming in, and we'll see, as social attitudes change, less prejudice in the selective process of who's going to be the role model in the next show changing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that men they do have to apologise sometimes, and we've kind of it's almost like it's a crime to be confident and a crime to be a good role model, and to sort of have that kind of authority and masculinity.
And I would argue that when we faced the threat of Germany in 1914 and in 1938, toxic masculinity was pretty welcome at that point, Monty.
Yeah, it was at that time. You can see, the leaders of, Hitler, the treatment that he did, against, the Jewish people was, completely, unacceptable. Some of that kind of stuff we've seen. Also, we saw, with Hitler during the Olympics, in Berlin.
We needed young men to be very masculine and very brave and to risk their lives on our behalf. Young men as young as 17 getting into a Spitfire with a 30% chance of survival.
Yeah, but during that time, it was, everyone was sacrificing themselves for their own country. And, come to mind is like the likes of Winston Churchill, who was, some people have their own, obviously, opinions about it, but he was a great leader for our country. Effectively, he defeated the Germans. That's what, he will be remembered upon. And I think it's Boris Johnson's, role model. That's his role model. When we talk about male role models, that's one that they look up to. And, even in our country, we've got some great leaders that people look up to. It's not just necessarily sports people. It's people who've been prime ministers, who've been successful and leading this, our country. So
who are these great leaders? You must introduce me to them.
Well, we got this John Major.
We didn't think he was great at the time. Though,
I thought he was a great prime minister for our country.
Really?
And yes, absolutely. So, we've got. Let's not forget, it's not just film stars. It's there are role models out there who've been successful, and their stories need to be, narrated why they were so successful. So, the young boys, the men who need to look up to male role models, they know more about that.
Hillary?
Can I just dispute something that you said a little earlier that rankled a little, where you said that we needed toxic masculinity, we needed young, brave men in the wars. Well, women weren't allowed to fight. Women, there are now women soldiers who are, just as good as men. There is no reason why women can't be as brave as men. Yes, we're not physically as strong, but, combat's not about physical strength, is it, anymore?
No, but I agree. No, listen, I think that's a very, very, very good point. Although physical combat, I guess, will always predominantly be the domain of men, I would have thought.
But war now isn't about hand-to-hand combat. Maybe in 1914
No,
it was.
you're right, and it definitely wasn't a slur on the amazing women that serve in our armed forces, and it's a brilliant, brilliant point that you've made, and I couldn't agree more. Well, look, it's a very special day today. It is Black Friday. Early this morning, the activist group Extinction Rebellion tried to ruin Black Friday by blocking 13 Amazon depots. Even Luke Skywalker got involved. Yes, Extinction Rebellion's banners read, "Black Friday exploits people and the planet." Plus, there was a Jeff Bezos impersonator who boarded a rocket to extinction and beyond. Well, we weren't going to let them spoil our fun. So it's time for a special edition of the Great British Game Show. Yes, it... Inspired by all the brilliant bargains being offered up today, we wanted to play a game of Dolan's Deals. Welcome to my showroom. We've got some amazing Black Friday deals to reveal. I'm going to show you the original price, and I want you at home and my panel to tell me how much they were reduced to today. So we've got the original price. You've got to guess the Black Friday price. So let's start right now with Dolan's Deals. And let's have a look at this one. It's a Shark vacuum cleaner. Very nice bit of kit. Lightweight, lithium-ion battery, bagless design. Original price, $399.99. What's the Black Friday price? Chloe Dobbs?
$39.99.
It's very harsh on that product. It's worth far more than that. Monty?
I reckon 50% off, so it's £200.
200, okay. And how about you, Hillary?
I reckon $299.
$299. Well, I'm pleased to say that Monty's met you halfway, and he's very, very close. He said 200. It's $188.98. So the points go to Monty for that one. How about this? This is a fantastic one. It's IKEA offering a 107 square foot home in Tokyo. Located in Tokyo's nightlife-heavy Shinjuku district. The apartment, fully furnished with the company's furniture, will be renting out a lease from December 2021, December the 15th. Comes with a shelf space, kitchenette and washing machine. So how much is, well, the original price is £50 a month. What's the Black Friday price?
£50 a month?
Yeah.
I'm getting on a plane now.
I know, it's a bargain, isn't it?
£35 a month?
No.
20.
Warmer. Giving you a clue there. It's $1 a month, £1 a month, I should say, £1 a month for that one. Okay, next up.
So I get the point then.
Well, exactly. Sounds pretty impressive to me. How about this? A hot tub for those chilly winter nights in the garden from Go Outdoors. Any of you got a hot tub, by the way?
I live on a boat.
No.
I live in a hot tub.
It's one big hot tub.
Cold tub.
It's a Lazy Spa Madrid Airjet, capacity 2 to 4 adults, 120 jets, that's more than COP26. Spa can be trolled through a phone app. Original price, $700. What's the Black Friday price? Monty?
I reckon it's 70% off.
Okay. So my mathematics.
My maths is not that great either. So
well, you're thinking about 300?
Well, yeah,
about 300,
yeah.
You go 300? Okay.
Yeah.
Chloe?
250.
250?
I want one.
I'd say 400.
I can tell you it's 350. It's £350. Okay, brilliant stuff. Next up. That was a tie, by the way. That was you share the points on that one.
I'm not doing well with my guesswork.
It's time for you to get back in the game, Chloe. With the
Give me a second chance.
Well, exactly. Uni pizza oven.
Okay.
Wood-fired, 12-inch pizzas. It reaches 500 degrees centigrade in just 15 minutes. It cooks stone-baked pizzas in as little as 60 seconds. Ultra-portable at just 10 kilograms. Original price, $249. What's the Black Friday price?
100.
Monty?
I reckon 150.
150.
175.
Well, the points go to Hillary because it's 199. Congratulations.
Why would anybody need their own pizza oven? How many pizzas do you eat?
What's wrong with a normal oven?
Well, exactly. But I mean, how many pizzas do you have to eat to need
It's
that?
just showing off. Only got a few seconds to go. How about a giant Toblerone from Amazon? Milk chocolate jumbo gift bar, 4.5 kilograms. Original, it's terrifying. Original price, $73.99. What's the Black Friday price?
I reckon £10.
You got a tenner. That's about 80% reduction, isn't it? How about you, Hillary?
I reckon about 40.
You're going 40. Chloe, your chance to steal the game.
I'm going to say 30, but I have to say I'm unimpressed with these discounts. They're very British. The Americans do Black Friday properly, and it would be slashed down to £5 or something like that.
Well, you are right about that. Some of these offers are quite mediocre, but I can tell you that you've been a fabulous panellist, Chloe, but it's not been your night.
Oh, no.
In our great British game show. The points go to Hillary because the price is $49.99. I think Hillary said 40. So congratulations to that. I'm going to get my team.
Do I get a Toblerone as a
You
prize?
definitely get a Toblerone and a pizza oven. I'll give you the receipt for that.
An apartment in Japan.
A tiny apartment in Japan. And a hot tub to go in your boat. It's funny, isn't it, on Black Friday? An American invention, Monty. Have you ever got excited, sort of caught up in the Black Friday fever?
I never have done, because I've just, I'm one of them sort of shoppers, which I like going to a shopping centre and exploring and, rather than...
Well, the shops have Black Friday too. And do you remember footage of people fighting each other over flat-screen tellies back in the day? People could show, it was a bit like early in the pandemic when people were fighting over loo roll. But I think what bothers me about it, Hillary, is that, I guess I'm old-fashioned, but for me, it's all about the January sales.
Yeah.
And the point is that that's when you look forward to getting a bargain.
Yeah.
And I think it spoils the fun by having sales before Christmas.
And quite frankly, I think that there are now constant sales all the time.
All year long.
There is. I remember a friend and I used to meet up on Christmas Eve because we discovered a secret, which was that the Selfridges sale actually started on Christmas Eve, not on the day after Christmas.
Was it the end of Christmas Eve, like late in the day?
Yes. And so you could get all the bargains before anybody else came for the Boxing Day sale.
Because they had to have all their stock ready for Boxing Day.
Exactly. They were getting it all ready. They were labelling it all up. And that's all gone, that excitement. Now it's just sale.
Amazing. Well, thanks to my amazing panel and to you at home for your company and your many messages of support for my voice. Have a great night. See you tomorrow at 9.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.